Chapter 822. In the dim and lightless palace, an eyeball floated half a foot above the ground, spreading its own glimmering light to the surrounding walls. The light patterns reflected on the walls rippled like an ocean. Yin looked at this eyeball curiously. It did not look any different from an ordinary eyeball. They all had sclera, and the middle of the eyeball was a sparkling blue like the ocean. The pupil was a vertical diamond-shaped crystal. It looked a little strange. One of the four treasures of heaven and earth, the eye of the ocean. Ning Qianxue was a little stunned as she reached out her hand to hold this sparkling and flawless eyeball. Four treasures of heaven and earth. Yin Nuoxing tilted his head in confusion. Ning Qianxue smiled and said, "It's not in the ranking of treasures of heaven and earth. In this ranking, there are only treasures that can be understood by people or gods. These four things are definitely not included: the heart of the earth, the eye of the ocean, the breath of the sky, and the sea of consciousness." Hearing the last one, Yin Nuoxing's eyes trembled slightly. His cheeks trembled, and he turned his face away unnaturally. However, Ning Qianxue did not seem to notice his momentary strangeness. She just stared at the eyeball in her hand and sighed. This is the eye of the ocean that was left behind from the mythological era. It's completely mature. The lifespan of treasures of heaven and earth itself is infinite. It will not be destroyed by time. Usually, no one will be stupid enough to destroy it. In fact, it can't be destroyed. In that long period of time, sometimes they will give birth to an independent consciousness. It is very difficult to give birth to a consciousness, and it is as pure as a piece of white paper. However, this is the first time I have heard of a treasure of heaven and earth that has the power to create a world on its own, and it has guarded it for so many years. What a terrifying obsession. Looking around, Ning Qianxue lowered her head and smiled. Then, while Yin Nuoxing was in a daze, she pinched his cheeks and turned him around. Before he could react, the palm holding the eye of the ocean quickly covered his eyes and gently covered them. Yin Nuoxing was stunned for a moment. He only felt a cold touch in his eyes. The eye of the ocean quietly merged into his eyes like seawater, giving him a fright. After he reacted, he quickly checked his eyes, but he didn't feel anything wrong. It seemed that his eyes were only cold, and there was no vertical eye on his forehead. "How do you feel?" Ning Qianxue smiled gently. Yin Nuoxing moved his eyes. At this time, his eyes were still covered, so he couldn't see anything. He could only shrug his shoulders. "Fortunately, I didn't feel anything special. There was a space inside. It should have been left behind by him. As expected, it was sealed. What was left inside should be the secret left behind by the god of destruction. It's good that it's sealed. You can't touch those things now. It's still very dangerous for you." Ning Qianxue curled her lips indifferently. Perhaps the name of such a legendary figure was too frightening. Instead, she felt that this thing was a bit unreal. Yin Nuoxing's eyes were covered for a long time. He also stood in a daze for a long time with his eyes closed. It was only when he was about to fall asleep, standing, that Ning Qianxue released her hand. "Try to open your eyes. Be careful. This is also the first time I've seen a mature eye of the ocean." Yin Nuoxing nodded and took a deep breath. He slowly opened his eyes a crack, and a substantial colorful light leaked out. However, this was a characteristic of his eyes and had nothing to do with the eye of the ocean. When his eyes were fully open, Ning Qianxue looked for a while and felt that there were some slight differences in her senses. The whites of his eyes were slightly watery. In the colorful eyes, the pupils had become two colorful diamond-shaped crystals. It was as if he had opened his evil spirit eyes. A soft glimmer was inadvertently emitted from these eyes. If one stared at them for a long time, there would be a strange feeling that his eyes were like water. Gently blinking his eyes, Yin Nuoxing didn't feel any special difference. If he had to say it, it seemed that his titanium alloy phoenix eyes could see more clearly. Could it be that this thing could cure myopia? When he came back to his senses, he saw Ning Qianxue looking at his eyes in a daze. Yin Nuoxing was also stunned for a moment. He looked at her in a daze and laughed foolishly. "Does it feel strange? Why are you looking at me like this?" As soon as he said this, he was pulled into Ning Qianxue's arms and kissed intimately. This made him smile bitterly and couldn't break free from her. How should we deal with this world? Stroking his messy hair, Yin Nuoxing's face was slightly red. He kept a subtle distance from Ning Qianxue and asked carefully, "The ruler of this world has changed hands. Its collapse has stopped. I can also use this as a foundation to make it complete." Looking at the complete heart of the world in her hand, Ning Qianxue spread her hands. "Well, I won't do this. The evolution of this subworld is too tiring. Every little bit will distort the rules. If the rules of the tertiary world want to work in the Octavian world, the rules will have to be twisted. This matter should be left to the professionals. I plan to give this world to the protector of the peaceful world." Yin Nuoxing nodded. He didn't understand anything deeper, and he didn't plan to deal with this. Thinking of another matter, he hesitated for a moment, pulled Ning Qianxue's sleeve, and said, "Sister Shui, that sea of consciousness, what does it look like?" Ning Qianxue was stunned. Mei Mao looked straight at her, especially those unusually beautiful eyes, which could almost steal her soul. Yin Nuoxing shuddered. Seeing that her eyes were about to turn green, he hurriedly stepped back and hugged himself. His face was slightly pale. Knowing that she had lost her composure just now, Ning Qianxue coughed and said seriously, "The sea of consciousness doesn't have a specific shape. It is the condensation of consciousness born from hundreds of billions of consciousnesses. These consciousnesses don't have to be human. Basically, all creatures with consciousness are counted. The external form of the sea of consciousness is determined by the strongest consciousness among those consciousnesses." What's the use of the sea of consciousness? Yin Nuoxing frowned. This thing seemed to be in his soul. At that time, in his dream, Zai said that he had a sea of consciousness in his dream, but at that time, he only saw a piece of darkness and couldn't feel anything. There was only a platform beside him. If he fell, he would feel like he was being swallowed. What's the use? Ning Qianxue also had some doubts about this question. I've never heard of the use of the sea of consciousness. Even in the long river of history, very few people have seen the existence of the sea of consciousness. It can silently swallow a person's consciousness and turn them into a part of the sea of consciousness, abandoning their own consciousness. Everything is the same. Whether it's good or bad depends on the person's opinion. I've never seen this thing before, so I don't know what it's used for. That I may have this sea of consciousness in my body. Yin Nuoxing's faint words made Ning Qianxue suddenly widen her eyes. Her jade-like hands suddenly grabbed his shoulders and stared at him. Her voice was serious. "Are you sure?" Yin Nuoxing laughed dryly and nodded. He told her what had happened in the past. After listening, Ning Qianxue's beautiful eyebrows were almost locked together. After pondering for a long time, she sighed and said to him, "Little star, can you let me check your soul?" The soul was filled with all a person's secrets. Letting someone else enter one's soul was equivalent to giving everything, including one's life, to another person. Yin Nuoxing was a little hesitant. Ning Qianxue's concerned gaze was definitely not fake. The two of them hadn't been together for a long time. The only restraint was that he hadn't remembered his past life. Yin Nuoxing laughed bitterly. If he refused, Ning Qianxue probably wouldn't force it. However, he had a vague sense of trust. That kind of trust that he could give his life to another person came without any reason. It made him choose to close his eyes and nod gently. He had to admit that he was a little simple-minded and a little heartless. He believed in this kind of feeling that came from nowhere. He would just treat it as if he had been blinded by his past life. Ning Qianxue seemed to know that he had just hesitated for a while, but agreed in an instant. She didn't think much about it. She just smiled faintly. Then, her forehead touched Yin Nuoxing's forehead. Her soul, like water, drilled into his soul. Yin Nuoxing couldn't describe the feeling of their souls merging. It was as if he was wrapped in a ball of water. His whole body felt indescribably relaxed. The things in his heart were seen clearly, but he didn't care about it at all. This feeling only lasted for a short while. Then, Ning Qinshue's soul carefully withdrew from his soul. She opened her eyes and looked at him with a strange expression. "How is it?" Yin Nuoxing hurriedly asked. Ning Qinshu frowned slightly and nodded. "Although I haven't seen it before, according to the records, it should be, there's indeed a deeply hidden sea of consciousness in your soul. It is in a state of deep dormancy. Under normal circumstances, it can't affect you. No, it is being suppressed by your consciousness." Seeing his worried face, Ning Qinshu smiled and rubbed his cheeks. She said, "It's okay. You have 3 lives and were once a god. You're even more powerful than me. The sea of consciousness won't backfire on you. As for what it does, I don't know for a while. I will try my best to figure it out. There are too few records of the sea of consciousness appearing in history." Yin Nuoxing nodded. Ning Qinshu smiled slightly. "The heart of the world is ready. Later, we will be able to cut off its connection with the soul furnace. Your baby sister and the others will be able to return to their original state. The long-lasting nightmare can also be put to an end here. When are we getting married?" Yin Nuoxing was just about to nod. This sudden question made him stumble and almost faint on the ground. He looked at Ning Qinshu in confusion and trembling. His head was about to explode from all kinds of emotions. "I am waiting to get married." Ning Qinshu pouted her red lips and shook his arm like a little girl. Her bright eyes contained a faint mischievous smile and shyness. This made Yin Nuoxing feel so awkward that he didn't know what to do. Let's talk about this later." Yin Nuoxing blushed and ran away. He almost fell on the stairs. Behind him, Ning Qinshu looked at him with a smile. Anyway, there was still a long time. An excited thought flashed through her mind. Ning Qinshu walked 2 steps faster and held his arm. Seeing him freeze for a moment, she laughed secretly. In a residential area where the awakened gathered, about 50 awakened ones gathered from all corners of the city. It was like a signal that a great disaster was about to befall the world. Those who were in hibernation had all awakened. Under the leadership of Ming and Shire, they gathered in the residential area. They had already informed these people of the general situation. As for the details, they couldn't explain it. They could only tell them as much as possible. Ming even specifically pointed out that the gods had descended. This sentence made the awakened ones calm down a lot. Their gazes were filled with anticipation, excitement, and confusion. Even though they knew that they could leave this place, they were still very confused. Among these people, the ones who had been here for the longest time had been who knew how many years. To them, the realm of the gods had become somewhat unfamiliar. "Hey!" Yin Nuoxing patted Shire's shoulder, who was resting at the side, and greeted her with a smile. Shire was stunned. A strange expression flashed through her golden eyes. She looked at Yin Nuoxing and then at Ning Qinshu, who had walked to the front of the awakened ones with a smile on her face. She curiously moved closer to Yin Nuoxing and sized her up. Then she said with a faint smile, "Yin Nuoxing, is what you said true?" Yin Nuoxing shrugged and said, "Since it's a fact, it's important to accept it. I don't need to trick you. If Sister Shui hadn't told me, I wouldn't have known that you were actually... Well, this matter is over. The world projection of your world should also be over. If there are no accidents, this situation won't happen again. That's good. You can have a good rest. You've been busy for a long time." Hearing this, Shire breathed a sigh of relief. She stretched her back and patted Yin Nuoxing's shoulder casually. "Speaking of which, I still don't know what you told me. The Yuan realm, the 3 Yuan realm, and so on. You feel like the world you live in has been turned upside down all of a sudden?" Yin Nuoxing looked at her with a smile. Shire smiled bitterly and nodded. Yin Nuoxing waved her hand casually. "Don't worry too much. Even if you didn't know at the beginning, this matter still exists. Even if you know now, you can't explore it further, so it won't interfere too much with you. The Yuan realm still exists. Whether you know it or not won't affect this, and it won't affect your lives. Sister Shui told me to tell you this because it's convenient for you to know the cause and effect. Now that you're done with your work, you can relax. All that's left is to clean up the mess." Shire shrugged nonchalantly, indicating that she didn't care too much about this matter. The collapse of this world seems to have stopped? Yes. Later, the soul furnaces will be cut off from it and sent to the professionals. Sister Shui doesn't plan to take over. Right now, it's just stabilizing it. Yin Nuoxing nodded and pointed into the distance. Although she couldn't see the white mist, she knew that it was there. You can go back the way you came after crossing the white mist. You're asking us to leave so soon. Shire smacked her lips. It can't be helped. The 8 Yuan realm isn't suitable for you. It's better for you to go back. You could be a god there and manage your world peacefully. You don't have to worry about these extra things. I also want to live an ordinary life. Unfortunately, Yin Nuoxing smiled bitterly. Shire rolled her eyes and said, Yes, master of the 8 Yuan realm. Let's just treat this as a strange dream. When we woke up, the world projection was over. Nothing happened. I didn't hear anything about the Yuan realm either. Are you angry? Yin Nuoxing tilted her head and looked at her. Who knows? Shire turned around and patted him on the shoulder. Then, she stood up and told Ha Ling and the others to prepare to leave. Finally, she turned to Yin Nuoxing and smiled faintly. Will we meet again in the future? Yin Nuoxing was stunned for a moment. Then, she smiled faintly. I will try to go to that world. I also want to see what the real 3 Yuan realm looks like. However, it might take a long time. It might take thousands of years or even hundreds of thousands of years. By then, you'll have all forgotten about these things. The gods have very good memories, especially when it comes to things worth mentioning in their long lives. They won't forget it so easily. Shire smiled and shook her head. She said, Come and chat with me when you have time. I'll take you to our world. Although it's not as crazy as your world, it's still a very beautiful world. You'll definitely like it. After saying that, Shire led Ha Ling and the others to the edge of the world at full speed. The others were a little confused, but they didn't ask anything. They said goodbye to Yin Nuoxing and hurriedly followed. After watching them disappear from sight, Yin Nuoxing stood up and sighed with a smile. We'll meet again if fate wills it. Chapter 823. After busying himself with the matters regarding the awakened ones, Ming naturally went to sit beside Yin Nuoxing. He looked in the direction that Shire and the others had left in and said softly, Brother, are you going to chase them away just like that? When Ning Qinxue had told her about their identities and origins, she had been listening from the side. Now, she was more indifferent and only showed a little curiosity. She didn't even say anything at that time. She only spoke after they had left. Yin Nuoxing glanced at her and reached out to pull the girl's wings into his arms. He stroked them and said softly, This is still the territory of the 8 Elements realm. Even if it's a subworld similar to the 3rd Elements realm created by twisting the rules, it's still the 8 Elements realm on a deeper level. Shire and the others crossed over through irregular means, so the transrealm aura on them can't be removed. If they stay in 8 Elements realm for a long time, they will be rejected by the rules of heaven and earth here, Sister Shui told me. Ming blinked and nodded calmly. Mei Mao carefully looked at Yin Nuoxing, who was stroking her wings. She was a little embarrassed, and her face was a little red. Her pure white wings couldn't help but tremble slightly. What's wrong? Yin Nuoxing looked at the girl and laughed. Ming was embarrassed and lowered her head as she mumbled. He was even more curious. After a long time, he heard her say with an abnormal expression, Wings, itchy, a little sensitive. Yin Nuoxing was stunned. He quickly let go of her wings, as if he had been electrocuted. He jumped up and looked at her with a dry smile. He scratched his head awkwardly and said, I didn't do it on purpose. Speaking of which, why didn't I feel that special feeling? Ming's pretty face turned slightly red. She shook her head and spread her wings, pulling Yin Nuoxing closer. If it's big, brother, don't say the rest. I admit defeat. Please don't say it. Yin Nuoxing quickly put his hands together and looked at Ming with a bitter expression. He could guess what she was going to say, even if she didn't say the rest. TSK, TSK, TSK. You're a beast. You've finally become a beast. A teasing voice came from behind him, causing Yin Nuoxing to tremble all over. A cold current ran along his spine to the top of his head, causing him to shudder. He turned his head stiffly, and as expected, he saw a man's black robe floating in front of him. His line of sight moved up, and, as expected, he saw a cunning and alluring face. The eyebrows that were like distant mountains were raised high, and the obsidian-like beautiful eyes were looking at the two people who were close together ambiguously. The helpless little sister had to endure the humiliation and harassment of her beastly brother's special hobby. Go to hell. Yinuashing immediately went berserk. Before this guy could finish his words, he quickly jumped up and fought with him. They were in public. How could this girl not know how to control her mouth? Just as the two of them were about to tear each other apart, Z hurriedly jumped out to separate the two of them. He hurriedly pulled Yinuashing, who was bristling with anger, and pointed at Ning Qinxue. He coughed lightly. Cough, so what did you two do while we were asleep? Yinuashing glared at her fiercely. He saw Zian and the others also come up with a curious look. Chu Yingzhan had already slipped into the crowd with a smile. He threw a look that said, "Chase me if you're not convinced." Yinuashing was so dispirited that even his long hair became a little dim. Yinuashing sorted out his messy thoughts and sighed. He told them what had just happened. Ming also came over when he was talking. They had just come back to help a group of awakened ones gather. They didn't know what had happened inside. The ocean. Chu Yingzhan sneaked back after circling around. When she heard Yinuashing say this, she immediately jumped up. Her arms were full of strength, and she broke apart Zian and the others who were gathered together. Then, she slapped Yinuashing's shoulder hard with her two slender hands. Her whole face was pressed against Yinuashing's eyes. She almost shouted in an impatient tone, "Sell it to me. Sell it to me. Sell it to me, okay. I'm willing to pay any price. What do you want? Is it worth it to sell me to you? It's not worth it. I have a younger sister and a younger brother. How about I sell my father to you as a fighter?" Everyone stared at her, dumbfounded. She had sold off her entire family in one breath, and even subtly, she had included herself as well. Yinuashing looked at her calmly. Although he didn't know what kind of shocking thing this young girl who was out of control thought of, but at this moment, pushing her away with a slap was definitely the right thing to do. In fact, he did the same thing. It was as if he had seen a wild beast. Reflexively, he slapped the beautiful face that came over and sent it flying. Seeing the girl in black fly away at a speed that broke the sound barrier, everyone calmly looked at her. Then, they looked at Yinuashing. The latter shrugged helplessly and said, conditioned reflex. Sorry. Oh, by the way, the Eye of the Ocean is not for sale. It's already in my eyes." Chu Yingzhan, who had just stood up from the ground, heard this. Her face suddenly turned green, then red, and then white, as if she had eaten poison. In the end, her whole person became a black and white painting. She stopped at the corner of the wall and mumbled to herself. You're all awake?" Yinuashing leisurely finished telling the whole story. He didn't forget about Shire and the others. Just as he was drinking a mouthful of water to moisten his throat, Ning Qinxue slowly walked over with her hands behind her back. Among the group of people behind her, Yuan Lan, the young man with the crew cut, and the others looked at her nervously. The others also had complicated looks in their eyes, but they were much calmer than before. "Sister Shui, it's done?" Yinuashing looked at Yuan Lan and the others and asked. Ning Qinxue nodded and laughed. She took out the heart of the world and said, "The matter of the soul furnace is clear. There is only one original body. Whether it is for Ming and the others or the trillions of souls, they're all reflections of the original body. At that time, he didn't have any more power to maintain the operation of the soul furnace, so he could only split it into hundreds of parts to use. Powerful souls can use the soul furnace that is close to the original body. Correspondingly, they also bear the high-level capacity to maintain the existence of this world. This is why he wanted to create the Hall of Souls that goes up level by level. This is not out of kindness. Everything is just to maintain the existence of this world," Ning Qinxue explained calmly. "After living here for so long, they have completely become a part of this world. They have almost become one with this world, so the restrictions on the souls are completely released. The soul furnace will also disappear. The sleepers will use all of their souls to maintain this world. and their original consciousness will also be lost. If there are no accidents, they should continue to be lost until this world collapses. Little Star and the others' arrival broke the peace of this world, and at the same time accelerated the speed of its collapse. Although it doesn't seem that serious on the surface, in reality, this world is already full of holes. Its scale has collapsed by about half within a day. Then, as you can imagine, after this world shrinks, it doesn't need so many souls anymore. The sleepers were kicked out by the soul furnace. In other words, they awakened. Yin Nuoshing scratched her head and then let out a long oh. Then she said calmly, "Now, the heart of the world is already under my control. The collapse of this world has stopped, and that space will also slowly close. No one will enter. Later, I will cut off the connection between the heart of the world and the soul furnace, and the latter will directly stop operating. Without any more instructions, the gathered souls will also return to their original owners' bodies. Everything that happened here will not be forgotten. Those that should grow will grow, those that should rebel will rebel, those that should change will change, and those that should become stronger will become stronger. The awakened will also return," Ning Qinshua said with a sigh. "Those children are very nervous now." Ning Qinshua laughed bitterly. "Even if I told them my identity and various other facts, they still couldn't completely relax. After being trapped in prison for decades, centuries, they were suddenly told that the prison would open the next day and a new life would be open to them. To us, this is a fact, but to them, this is already a worrisome and maddening hope. What is buried under the full load of hope is uncontrollable despair. They are afraid that after their hope is shattered, there will be even greater despair." Yinuashing looked at them. Most of them had doubtful expressions on their faces. They had lived here for so long, and to them, this was a reality. It had really happened. They all came from the realm of the gods, but their memories of the realm of the gods only lasted for a few years, at most 12 years. This world had no nightmares, but the existence of this world itself was a nightmare to them. They had been imprisoned for decades, or even centuries. It was because of this that they didn't dare to believe in this inconceivable dawn. Yin Nuoshing shrugged, looked at Ning Qinshue, and asked, "Anyway, everything will be over soon. Sister Shui, when do you plan to make your move?" "Immediately." "Little Star, don't you plan to walk around in this world?" Ning Qinshue smiled and rubbed his face. Yin Nuoshing pondered for a while. He thought about what crazy things the adult in his family would probably do after he went missing, and he suddenly shivered. He hurriedly laughed and waved his hand, saying, "Forget it. It's more important to go back first. If Sister Jean and the others are so anxious that they turn the East Sea upside down, it won't be fun." Ning Qinshue smiled and nodded. She held the heart of the world with both hands and closed her eyes. Under the control of her power, the heart of the world emitted a slight buzzing sound. Then, with this huge city as the center, a huge spherical energy shield opened up in an instant, covering the entire world. It went straight to the edge of the white fog area. In the sky, blue-purple light gradually spread out. It was as mysterious as the place Yin Nuoshing and the others saw in the inner space. In the sky, irregular crystals were rotating, covering the entire sky. Strangely, none of the residents of the source life below noticed this strange scene in the sky. It was as if nothing had happened to them. "Close." Ning Qinshue softly spat out 2 words. Suddenly, the large row of irregular crystals in the sky trembled. The crystals began to dissipate from the edges, quickly spreading towards the center. Ming, Yuanlan, and the others were suddenly stunned. Then head-sized balls of light rose from their bodies. There were a total of 26 balls of light, not one less. At the same time, a row of about 50 balls of light also rose from the bodies of the awakened. These balls of light were several times brighter than the ones that appeared on the bodies of the former and the others. They were the soul furnaces. Now, as the connection between the soul furnaces and the heart of the world began to weaken, these reflections were all removed from everyone's bodies. The appearance of the soul furnaces made Yuanlan and the others slightly excited. They subconsciously looked towards Yin Nuashing. Seeing him smile and wave his hand to indicate that it was nothing, they also told their companions to calm down. The large group of balls of light floated in the air. After floating for a while, they trembled slightly. The shape of the balls of light was pulled into an oval shape. They rushed into the sky and disappeared with a whoosh. Then Ming, Yuanlan, and the others' bodies began to emit a faint light. Their bodies began to become transparent, as if they were about to turn into dots of light and disappear into the air. Following the disappearance of the soul furnace, Yuanlan and the others inexplicably felt like they were waking up. It was just like someone waking you up in the morning. They could feel their consciousness slowly returning and waking up. This special feeling made them extremely excited, and all the worry on their faces was swept away. Then, they realized something else that made them realize that they were about to leave, right? Hey, where do you live? I live in the Heaven's Fate City in the Ganyuan region. We're basically all from the sea god's domain. Everyone was speechless. This was too much. Seeing that everyone was suddenly saying goodbye, Yin Nuashing smiled faintly. He waved at Yuanlan and the others from afar. Then, he felt a soft body jump into his arms. He was stunned for a moment. When he lowered his head, he saw Ming hugging him tightly and burying her face in his chest. Little purple soul, who was sitting on his shoulder, saw that her body was starting to fade. She cried out in surprise. She hugged Yin Nuashing's head with one hand and shook it with the other. She giggled and said, "We're going home. We're going home. Big brother, you're going to see us when you open your eyes." That's a little difficult. Yin Nuashing rubbed little purple soul's head and patted her back. He chuckled and said, "Good girl, we'll be back soon. It won't take long." Ming nodded and rubbed her head against his chest. Her silver-white hair swayed in the wind. She raised her head and looked at him with her golden eyes. Yin Nuashing wanted to smile more gently, but little purple soul pinched his cheeks with both hands. His expression was extremely funny. Little White, who was sitting on his head, saw this and moved away in fear. He stared at little purple soul cautiously, and his silver-blue tail became thicker. Whoosh! When everyone's bodies disappeared completely, Yin Nuashing's arms and shoulders were empty. The group of people behind him also disappeared and turned into streams of light that shot into the sky. In the Hall of Souls, the clusters of souls that had gathered together began to swell like dying stars. A terrifying amount of souls erupted from the center and turned into a transparent river that flowed out of the Hall of Souls. The river of energy that had been gathering towards the eye of the storm suddenly collapsed and turned into the purest form of energy, dissipating on the spot. The eye of the storm was filled with a terrifying amount of energy. It would probably take many years for the energy balance to return to normal. The huge energy vortex that had been gathering from afar suddenly collapsed in the sky and turned into a waterfall of energy that poured into the sea. The group of people under the vortex suddenly felt that something was wrong. They raised their heads and looked at the sea of energy that was falling from the sky. They didn't even have time to react before their faces were covered in energy. At and yen asterisk and percent asterisk. Suddenly, they were showered with energy from head to toe. The energy waterfall exploded in midair, and a figure came out from it. The golden figure cursed as she grabbed the transparent feather dress on her body. She raised her head and looked at the bright sky. She frowned and said, "Mother of asterisk her, why did the vortex collapse just like that?" The vision in the sky has also disappeared. Palace Master Jean, who was glowing with golden light, stopped in midair and looked at the rapidly disappearing bluish-purple color in the sky. Then he thought of the whirlpool and finally looked down at the calm, dark sea below. He chuckled and said, "Little Xingxing is quite capable. We were too worried." Princess Jean patted her sleeves. Hearing this, she pouted her red lips and snorted, but didn't say anything. Chapter 8:24. After sending away this group of awakened or lost souls, a large cluster of even brighter light disappeared from the city behind him. Those who had been hiding in the city without awakening were also forcefully expelled from this world. Silently, the residents of the source didn't realize what had happened. The 100 or so people who had disappeared were automatically restored by the laws of this world. Perhaps they had never existed in the first place and had never caused any impact. Walking back along the path they had come from, the Hall of Souls was empty. The hundreds of millions of souls had now safely returned to the place where they should have been. It was quiet, as if nothing had happened. Those souls, what will happen to them? Xian asked with some concern. They had been imprisoned here for who knew how many years. Now that they had returned, could they really be safe? Nothing will happen to them. At most, they will think of it as a nightmare. Hundreds of millions of families will be glad that their children have woken up. They will cry tears of joy or something. Perhaps nothing will happen. Trillions of people have woken up at the same time. No matter how sensational it is, no one will be able to connect it to this place. Yin Nuoxing sighed. Life has to go on. This is just a small interlude. To them, to everyone, to this world, it is just an insignificant interlude. The dim hall at the beginning had disappeared, and the bones of the gods had disappeared with it. Coming out of the Hall of Souls, they were directly sent to the outside of the Ice Palace ruins. The flowing river of energy had ended its mission of countless years. Everything stopped and was silent. Boom! After exiting the barrier, Ning Qinxue turned around. She extended her hand towards the barrier and gently clenched it. The barrier that enveloped the Ice Palace ruins suddenly trembled and rapidly collapsed inwards. In a short span of a few breaths, it collapsed until it was only the size of a peanut. Then it exploded with a weak spark and completely disappeared. The heart of the world is with me. There is no need for this Ice Palace to exist. Ning Qinxue sighed. Let it sleep here forever. After saying this, Ning Qinxue carried everyone and soared into the sky. That violent speed and power formed a huge vacuum under the sea. Yin Nuoxing even heard the sound of the air whistling past and suspected that it was an auditory hallucination. Moreover, the former's explosive speed was many times faster than him, using the light element with all his strength. He also did not feel the discomfort of that violent speed on his body. Sister Shui, let's go somewhere. It only took 10 seconds to go from the bottom of the sea to the surface of the sea. The two places that suddenly accelerated and suddenly stopped were naturally crossed. No one felt any discomfort. Ning Qinxue originally wanted to carry Yin Nuoxing and the others and directly teleport them to the 9 divine temples. However, Yin Nuoxing's words stunned her. She looked at the place he was pointing at and nodded without hesitation. She did not ask why and just took everyone there in a flash. In the space, they were tens of thousands of miles away. In just a few breaths, Yin Nuoxing and the others were brought to the island reef. Coincidentally, when the tide was low, they could still vaguely see the huge rock that they saw when they got off the ship. Originally, it was very difficult to find such an inconspicuous island reef on the surface of the sea. Perhaps it was because of the eye of the ocean, they did not feel any other changes. The clearest manifestation was that their vision had become unprecedentedly good. With the help of the evil spirit eye, they could probably see the subtle movements of an ant thousands of miles away. Using the brilliant colors of several elements, they left a line of extremely eye-catching words on the huge rock. Yin Nuoxing laughed. When he came, he had told you that the latter would come again in 10 days. If he left, he would leave a line of words. After hearing this, Ning Qinxue blinked and said, If you didn't mention it, I would have forgotten. Find some time to go to Nirvana City. I have to tell that guy not to worry about the eye of the storm anymore. A gust of wind came from afar, causing everyone to be stunned. They did not expect that guests would come just as the eye of the storm calmed down. They all looked towards the horizon, and a row of tiny dots quickly magnified in their eyes. Seeing the familiar figures, Yin Nuoxing and the others were stunned. It seemed that they had lost contact with them for too long, causing them to be very anxious. Otherwise, they would not have mobilized such a large group of people. Sister Jean, over here. Yin Nuoxing raised his hand and shouted. His shout quickly attracted the attention of Princess Jean and the others. Immediately, the row of figures flew much faster. In a few flashes, they appeared not far in front of them. They were so close that they could clearly see the sign language. At the same time, there was a surge of murderous aura. The moment Yin Nuoxing sensed the murderous aura, his expression changed. When he saw Princess Jin's twisted face, which was obviously filled with anger and resentment, he immediately exclaimed and quickly hid behind Ning Qianxue. It seemed that he also knew that they had lost contact with him for too long. Not only was she angry, but her murderous aura was also somewhat distorted. Brat, if you have the ability to go missing, then go ahead. Don't hide. Princess Jean rushed in front of Ning Qianxue. Her golden eyes stared fiercely at the head with long, colorful hair behind Ning Qianxue. With a roar, the head trembled and quickly shrank back. That, Yin Nuoxing carefully poked his head out from behind Ning Qianxue. A pair of seductive, colorful Mei Mao looked at Princess Jean obediently. He smiled and said, I was wrong. Sister Jean, don't be angry. I won't be pretty when I'm angry. I percent yen. Percent asterisk. Do you know that you percent yen? At percent asterisk, Empress Jin's abnormally strong oppression made Yin Nuoxing lose his sense of security. He exclaimed and quickly escaped from behind Ning Qianxue. Ning Qianxue also chased after him fiercely. The words that were blocked when they opened their mouths made the listeners feel ashamed. That girl is going through menopause. Palace Master Jean spread his hands helplessly. Princess Jean was a little angry recently. He couldn't control her. He looked at Ning Qianxue, who was smiling and watching Princess Jean and Yin Nuoxing chasing each other in the sky. He stepped forward and cupped his hands. Fairy Ning, long time no see. Ning Qianxue coughed dryly and stopped smiling. She tilted her head and looked at Palace Master Jean. She blinked and looked confused. She flipped through the memories that she had classified into unimportant and unimportant. After a while, she showed a look of realization. She smiled faintly and said, You were the little brat from Golden Temple back then. TSK, I didn't expect that after not seeing you for so many years, you have actually reached this step. Palace Master Jean suddenly felt a little embarrassed. He nodded, not knowing whether to laugh or cry, and scratched his long hair. Palace Master Shui, Palace Master Hua, and the others gathered together and whispered to each other. Obviously, when they heard Palace Master Jean being called a little brat, they laughed. But it was no wonder. Ning Qianxue had lived for more than 3 eras. Their group had only lived for more than 2 eras. According to the time of that year, they were indeed little brats. Little Star is indebted to you all for taking care of her. Thank you. Ning Qianxue stroked her long blue hair and smiled faintly. Before Palace Master Jean and the others said anything, she said, Cough, I more or less know about the 9 divine temples, so you don't have to say anything else. If I want to say thank you, I will accept it honestly. Little Star is in the line of Palace Master to you all. To me, she's just my lover. There is nothing to be confused about. Hearing this, Palace Master Jean rubbed his hands and nodded awkwardly. Speaking of which, we're the 9 old guys. Don't tell me they passed away? Ning Qianxue said casually. Are you talking about the previous Palace Master and the others? Those 9 old guys. I don't know. Maybe they are dead. Palace Master Jean shrugged. Palace Master Hua's face darkened. He stepped forward and knocked Palace Master Jin's head hard. If they hear you, they will make you kneel at the entrance of the main hall. The 9 Palace Masters of the previous 9 divine temples are not in the divine realm now. Who knows where they have gone? They left behind the 9 divine temples, which had a lot of business, and went to the starry sky together. Anyway, they are gods. They will not die even if we die. Palace Master Hua sighed. What are you talking about? On the side, Princess Jean finally came back with Yin Nuoxing. She heard them talking about something, so she went up and asked casually. Yin Nuoxing took this opportunity and quickly ran behind Ning Qianxue. He tidied up his messy clothes and let out a long sigh of relief. After chatting for a while, Hall Master Shui opened the passage to the 9 shrines. Everyone knew that this was not a good place to chat, so they left first. Yin Nuashing took one last look at the eye of the storm behind him, touched his eyes, and let out a sigh of relief with a faint smile. Then he followed the others into the passage. Yao Hua and the others have already entered the secret land. There are a total of 21 people in the group. You are a few days late. Princess Jean clamped Yin Nuashing under her armpit and scratched his long, colorful hair hard, making the latter suffer. Okay, I miscalculated. I admit defeat. What should I do? I haven't graduated from Yuanguang yet. That trial. Sigh. Yin Nuashing sighed. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He had been holding his breath since he got off the ship. After he let it out, he suddenly felt a lot more dispirited. What secret land? Ning Qianxue pulled his sleeve and asked softly. The Jiesu secret land. It's a trip to the secret land held by all the god-level academies in the divine realm every few years. My first trial was to graduate from Yuanguang Academy, so I negotiated with the dean there. If I could bring Yuanguang Academy to a good result on the trip to the secret land, well, I could graduate, and my first trial would be over. Now, sigh. Yin Nuashing talked endlessly, and then sighed again. Princess Jean on the side added some things from time to time. She told him all the details about the Jiesu secret land. I know a little about the trip to the secret land. It's not only for people from the academy. Many of our Shuexian sect's outstanding children are also participating. The god-level academies are only responsible for gathering and opening the door. Ning Qianxue thought for a while, then smiled and rubbed Yin Nuashing's face. She said, "That's easy. I can open a crack for you to get in." Well, it's just that there's a disadvantage in terms of time. After all, it's been a few days. The trip to the secret land lasts for a long time. The beginning is especially important. Speaking of this, Ning Qianxue looked at him with a smile. Yin Nuashing shook his head helplessly and said, "It's a disadvantage. It can be turned around. If we can't get in, there's nothing to talk about." Hearing this, Ning Qianxue nodded. She pointed at his chest and said, "The mark of the Ice Snow Divine Scepter is the token of the Shuexian sect. Holding the scepter is equivalent to a summoning order. If you meet them, those children should be of some help to you. Well, it's even better that you're willing to help. We've been looking for a loophole for the past 2 days. We found the target location, but the barrier there is too hard. To tear it open, we must use the eternal divine weapon of the 9 divine temples. Too much interference will make the world unstable, so we haven't made up our minds yet." Palace Master Jean nodded. "Leave it to me." Ning Qianxue hugged Yin Nuashing and smiled. "This is considered going in through the back door." Going in through the back door, right? Yin Nuashing looked silently at this group of people who decided what to do next in a few words. He sighed. Palace Master Jean and the others nodded confidently, leaving him completely at a loss. The group ran back to the 9 divine temples. Yin Nuashing rushed to the top of the fire god temple as if his life depended on it. Xian and the others also quickly followed. They were still a little worried because they hadn't seen the 2 little girls with their own eyes. Palace Master Jean and the others saw the group of people in a hurry and couldn't say anything. Palace Master Hua slapped his forehead and said, "Speaking of which, what are we going to do in the East Sea?" Palace Master Jean thought for a moment and said, "We've done a round of soy sauce, but it's not full yet." Everyone smiled bitterly. At the top of the Fire God Temple, Palace Master Hua removed the restriction after returning. Yin Nuashing and the others were unimpeded and soon arrived at the top. Before they could stand firm, they heard a cheerful cheer. A petite figure rushed out from it and stuck tightly to Yin Nuashing's head. Her slender hands hooked around his neck and turned around. She sat down on his shoulder leisurely and giggled. Brother, we're late. We woke up 10 minutes ago." Yin Nuashing smiled and rubbed the girl's head. He turned his head and saw Ming walking over with her bare feet an inch above the ground. Her long silver-white hair was like a waterfall hanging behind her, almost dragging on the ground. Golden Mei Mao stared at him closely and didn't say anything. She wrapped her hands around his waist and bumped her head against his chest without saying a word. The changes in the soul form have been fixed. Even the physical body has changed. Well, there shouldn't be a problem, right? Ziya's voice quietly sounded in his mind. Yin Nuoxing nodded and reached out to pat Ming's head. The latter lifted Mei Mao and looked at him, suddenly revealing a very strange smile. Yin Nuoxing was slightly stunned. Before he could react to the meaning behind the strange smile, Ming's body suddenly turned into a blurry golden light. Then, under everyone's dumbfounded gaze, she entered between Yin Nuoxing's eyebrows. The latter was also stunned. When he came to his senses, he felt that there was an additional holy figure in his soul. He immediately smiled bitterly and said, "That girl has entered my soul." In the spiritual world, Zi looked at the little angel who descended from the sky and exchanged glances with Lon X, and the others. Then he smiled and clapped his hands, saying, "Welcome, new guests. This place is empty. You can choose whatever you want." Two blue veins popped out on Yin Nuoxing's forehead. He took a deep breath and said, "Don't rent out my soul." Chapter 825. After resting for a night, they adjusted themselves to their best condition. Yin Nuoxing and the others stood on the top of the Golden Temple and looked at the training field below from the edge. Yin Nuoxing noticed that there seemed to be fewer disciples in the temple. It's not just Yao Hua and the others. Some of the little guys also went with them, saying that they want to train with the Son of God and the others. Oh, right, the Son of God is with them. You're the young temple master, not the Son of God, Temple Master Jean said with a smile. Yin Nuoxing staggered. If no one was holding him, he would have fallen from the roof of the temple. After stretching, Yin Nuoxing turned around and opened his arms slightly. Then, it's time to confirm the number of people. The trip to the secret realm is open. There are no restrictions on long-range or close-range combat. Anyone wants to join? As soon as he said this, Zian, Feng, and Little Bing Air all stepped forward. Yin Nuoxing smiled faintly. These girls had become soul-bound items. They would basically follow him wherever he went. There was no reason not to bring them along. Well, I'll pass this time. I can't get involved with Brother Nua's matters. Yishi sat on the edge of the temple, swinging her little feet. She looked up and smiled helplessly at him. Yin Nuoxing shrugged. He wanted to say, "You can cultivate in the temple." However, this girl jumped up and did a backflip. Her body turned into a soul and directly entered his soul. Then, a playful voice came from his head. "But I can hide in the soul to protect Brother Nu. Hey, we're missing one. Come and play cards." Zai's laughter made Yin Nuoxing so anxious that he almost jumped off the roof of the temple. "I'll go." As soon as Zai finished speaking, Yin Nuoxing's forehead lit up. A faint voice, accompanied by a hymn, descended from the sky. Pure white feathers fluttered in the air. Ming's holy figure jumped out from between his eyebrows and landed steadily in front of him. She smiled faintly at him. "Girl, we're not going to have fun this time. We have a mission." Yin Nuoxing sighed and stroked the girl's silver-white hair. Ming pursed her lips and narrowed her eyes at Mei Mao. She slowly spread her wings, and a dazzling golden aura surrounded her body, causing the sunlight to ripple slightly. She was incomparably divine, as if she contained an endless amount of light energy. This level of brilliance did not surprise Yin Nuoxing. What surprised him was the girl's aura. "Ming, you this aura? Supreme God? Oh my God, why are all of them cultivating as if they're flying a plane? Why am I so miserable? I'm really..." Yin Nuoxing did not know whether to laugh or cry as he pulled his long hair. The girls around him were all valiant. Little Ming slept for 9 years and directly went from immortal rank to beginner god rank. Moreover, she was a supreme god. Palace Master Jean looked at Ming in surprise. After a while, he turned his gaze to Yin Nuoxing and said, This child is a little special. I've only felt such divine energy from the ancient angels. They're now extinct. If I'm not mistaken, they're extinct. Could it be that you found the holy item of the angels somewhere?" Yin Nuoxing smiled bitterly and shook his head. He told Palace Master Jean about Ming's 9 years of deep sleep. After listening, Palace Master Jean pondered for a while and said uncertainly, "Maybe it's the soul of a trapped angel." Palace Master Shui touched Ming's forehead with her hand. After sensing for a while, she shook her head. I can't tell. It's completely fused. There's not even a trace of a soul left. No matter what, this power already belongs to little Ming. It's as easy as swinging an arm. There won't be any backlash. After saying that, Palace Master Shui looked at Yun Nuoxing gently and smiled. Little star, after we go in, help me take care of Ling. Yun Nuoxing scratched his long hair and nodded with a smile. Count me in as well. Just when Yun Nuoxing thought that the candidates had all been decided, Chu Yingxian suddenly jumped out. She also adhered to her characteristic of being swift and decisive. With a kick, she sent the former flying more than 10 meters away. Her words carried an unquestionable tone as she added herself into the team. Yun Nuoxing crawled up from 10 meters away. He rubbed his waist that was in pain from the kick. This girl actually did not show any mercy at all. Okay, I'll count you in. In any case, if you come, no one will vote against you. Little Purple, what's your plan? Yun Nuoxing looked at the girl curiously as he carried her down from his shoulder. When he flew out just now, this girl actually stayed on his shoulder and didn't fall. Little Purple Soul looked up and said for a long time. Then, she poked Yun Nuoxing's lips with her little finger. After a while, she chuckled and poked between his eyebrows with her finger. Then she went in. Yun Nuoxing was dumbfounded. She went into his soul again. Brother, I'll stay here for the time being. Little Purple Soul is very obedient. I won't give brother any trouble. The little girl's giggles and Zai's loud voice when he was playing card from the other world sounded in his mind. Yun Nuoxing covered his face speechlessly. Is my soul comfortable? Xian and the other 3 girls nodded silently and said in unison, it's very warm. Yun Nuoxing was speechless. When it comes to souls, they can only enter your spiritual world easily when you're not on guard against them. Palace Master Jean looked at Yun Nuoxing and then at Xian and the other girls and smiled. What he meant was that this kid had never been on guard against them. They could enter and leave his spiritual world like it was a game. Stop it. Yun Nuoxing was so embarrassed that his face turned red. TSK. Chu Yingxian looked at Yun Nuoxing with disdain. The look of disdain on her face made Yun Nuoxing's hair flutter in the air. Everyone thought that if Chu Yingxian said something else, Yun Nuoxing would eat her alive. Quiet down. I'm going to open the door. The crack can only last for 1 minute. The distance is too far. 1 minute is the limit. The rest depends on your luck. Ning Qinxue coughed dryly and quickly stopped the topic that was about to go out of control. Be careful on this trip. There is very little information about the Jiesu mysterious realm. We don't know what happened in there. Those who die in there will really die. Survival is the most important thing. Palace Master Jean patted Yun Nuoxing's shoulder, looked at the group of people, and sighed. Speaking of which, you didn't seem to have stayed in the 9 Gods Palace for more than a few days. Yun Nuoxing laughed dryly. Well, I can't control this, can I? Ha bang. A loud sound came from behind them. A huge crack suddenly appeared in the space. It stretched out for dozens of meters and was about 3 meters wide. The chaotic power of space formed a huge wind that blew everyone's clothes. Yun Nuoxing turned around. It was a red crack. The red color collapsed toward the middle and turned black. It was like a mouth that could swallow people. It's done. After tearing open the crack, Ning Qinxue clapped her hands. Then, she walked toward Yun Nuoxing. Under everyone's gaze, she gave him a tight hug. Then, her red lips touched his face lightly like a dragonfly skimming the water. She whispered, "Be careful." After saying that, she let go of the hug and turned to look at Xian. Xian was slightly stunned. Then, she clenched her hands and nodded. Do you still have Yuan Guang's token? The holder of the Academy token represents the Academy. It was rare for Home Master Guang to open his mouth. Yun Nuoxing smiled and patted the pendant on his chest. He nodded and said, "Yes, I do." Taking a deep breath, he forcefully patted his cheeks and looked towards Ziyin and the others. In the end, he somewhat speechlessly looked at Chu Yingxian. With a sigh, he waved his hand and said, "Let's go." As his voice rang out, Yun Nuoxing's figure flew towards the red spatial crack. Behind him, Xin, Feng Ming Ming, and Chu Yingzhan all deeply breathed in and chased after him as they jumped into the crack. The red crack rippled and swallowed the six of them. Then, Ning Chinchue's hand seals condensed. The huge crack spun a few times like a twisted whirlpool and then disappeared completely. Sigh, I'm so tired. Opening a crack so far away will destroy the stability of that world. It's so troublesome. Why don't we just blow it up and wait for it to heal naturally? Ning Chinchua stretched and said something that made everyone laugh bitterly. Let's find a secret room and see if we can bypass the rules and use the holy staff to contact Little Star. Ning Chinchua said to herself. Then, she disappeared from the top of the temple. Do you mind if I borrow a room? Palace Master Jean and the others laughed bitterly. You're asking if I mind when you're gone? What's the use of minding? There was a violent spatial turbulence in the red crack. Ning Chinchua's power enveloped the 6 people from Yun Nuo planet and brought them through the spatial crack. Not long after, they saw a ball of light rapidly approaching in front of them. The 6 people's expressions turned serious. They prepared to resist the impact and then plunged into it. Their vision was covered by the dazzling light, and they felt slightly dizzy. However, this feeling disappeared in a flash. The spatial turbulence around them disappeared, and the space stabilized. The light in front of them also slowly disappeared. They subconsciously tensed their bodies. When the light in front of them completely disappeared and the light returned to normal, they opened their eyes abruptly. A strange world suddenly appeared in their vision. This was a vast land. At a glance, the land extended to the end of their vision. There were high mountains and steep ridges. Everywhere, there were deep abysses inserted into the ground. The widest of those deep abysses was at least 100 feet wide. The energy that lingered around them told everyone that the great power that caused these scars was some kind of indescribably terrifying battle power that tore the earth apart. The sky was also divided into distinct regions by an unknown power. A large red and black sky was in the sky. In the distance, there was a green sky. There was even a purple-black sky that was like the void. The entire world was filled with indescribable energy. Desolation and vitality coexisted. From time to time, a huge crack would open in the space. Chaotic spatial winds would sweep out and sweep away a part of the land, leaving behind large potholes. So desolate. This aura originates from the ancient antiquity. Yin Nuoxing opened his arms and took a deep breath. Shock flashed across his face. He was not unfamiliar with this aura. Zai would occasionally release this desolate aura. It was an aura that originated from the primordial era. Yin Nuoxing's gaze swept from the distance to the ground. After a while, she retracted her gaze. At this moment, they seemed to have been thrown on top of a mountain. The side of the mountain was pierced by a deep abyss that was over 100 feet wide. It swallowed half of the mountain and left a vertical cross-section. They just happened to be standing at the edge, and on this half of the mountain, there was only him and Chu Yingzhan. Yin Nuoxing was stunned. Chu Yingzhan was also stunned. The two of them looked at each other for a while. Then, they said in a daze at the same time, "We've been teleported away." Yin Nuoxing spread his soul power slightly. He touched the imprint that was left in his soul and tried to send a soul message. However, he could not establish a connection even after trying for a long time. The air was filled with an unknown power that prevented him from sending a soul message to Xian. Furthermore, his soul power, it's been suppressed. I've already discovered it. Before he could check, Chu Yingzhan said from the side. She squeezed her lily-white hands and sighed. It's been suppressed to the divine soul realm. In the god realm, soul power was just born. What bad taste. Yin Nuoxing was stunned. He hurriedly checked himself. His expression changed instantly. Chu Yingzhan frowned. What's wrong? Don't tell me that it's the same for you. You have so many divine items on you. You shouldn't be suppressed. Upon hearing this, Yin Nuoxing's body trembled. He shook his head. I'm not suppressed to the divine soul realm. Before Chu Yingzhan could breathe a sigh of relief, Yin Nuoxing said in a gloomy tone, I'm currently in the emptiness realm. When I first started to sense the energy of heaven and earth, Chu Yingzhan could not help but widened her eyes. Mei Mao's obsidian-like eyes stared blankly. Then, as if she understood, she nodded. It should be because of this secret realm. It can't be that we're the only ones being suppressed. That makes sense. Do you want me to tell you a piece of bad news? Yin Nuoxing forced a smile. Chu Yingxian paused for a moment. Then, she raised her jade-like hand. Go ahead. It won't be bad anyway. Yin Nuoxing smiled faintly. He clenched his fist tightly. He tried this a few times. Before he could say anything, Chu Yingxian saw through him. She immediately frowned. You can't use your divine items? Yin Nuoxing's mouth twitched. He nodded helplessly. Everything has been suppressed. Divine weapons, divine items, soul, spirit, elemental energy, astral energy, and even the divine imprint in my body have all been suppressed. Yin Nuoxing paused for a moment. Then he smiled bitterly. Fortunately, the seal has also been suppressed. The situation hasn't reached the worst yet. It's already very bad. Chu Yingxian frowned. She scanned the surroundings. Fortunately, this place seemed to be more remote, and no one came here. At the godly soul realm, I can barely use my soul power. My elemental energy and divine energy have all been sealed. What the hell is going on? Yin Nuoxing smiled bitterly and waved his hand. He touched the pendant and thought for a moment. Then he took out the token of the Yuan Guang Academy. The token was like a shield. At this moment, it was emitting a weak light. He touched it gently. A weak message slowly flowed into his eyes. After thinking for a moment, he slapped the token on his forehead. Instantly, a large amount of information rushed into his mind like a hurricane. When Chu Yingxian saw this, she was stunned for a moment. Soon after, she understood what he was doing and retreated 2 steps. Her beautiful eyes vigilantly looked around. The weak energy circulating within her body caused her to angrily curse in her heart. This energy was so weak that she wanted to flip the table. After the large amount of information entered his mind, it quickly turned into a long string of words. Yin Nuoxing quickly read through it. After a moment, he finished reading the information in the token. Then, he put the token away and organized his thoughts. Then, he heaved a sigh of relief. How is it? Chu Yingxian turned around and asked when she heard the sigh of relief. The suppression is universal. Once you enter this place, you will be suppressed. At the very least, you will be suppressed to the Pantheon realm. Even worse, you will be suppressed to the Divine Heart realm and the Godly Soul realm. For people like me who are suppressed to the Emptiness realm, yes, the rules say that the stronger you are, the stronger the suppression. Anyway, I am suppressed to the Emptiness realm. Yin Nuoxing shrugged helplessly. Chu Yingxian. And then? Nothing else? Yin Nuoxing nodded and said, this kind of suppression can be recovered. It's like breaking a seal. There are countless natural treasures in this secret realm. Those that contain a large amount of energy can help to break the seal and recover one's strength. Even killing demonic and demonic beasts here can help to recover one's strength. As for the rest, this is the only thing worth mentioning. Yin Nuoxing raised his head and pointed at the red sky above them. The sky of this world is divided into more than 10 large areas. They are divided by color. Each area contains natural treasures that contain different elements. Red is the fire element, and so on. Other than the areas with 9 different elements and 9 different colors, there are a few special areas. For example, the area in the distance that looks like the void. In each area, the darker the color, the higher the concentration of energy, and the more energy the treasures contain. Similarly, it can also be considered a place with higher danger. Yin Nuoxing paused for a moment and looked at the bottom of the pile of information. Gentle reminder, the law of the jungle. The one with the bigger fist speaks. The 2 of them were stunned. They looked at each other and shook their heads with bitter smiles. This reminder was simply too much. Chapter 826. Aren't you going to lead that Yuan Guang Academy to do something? Did you state the conditions clearly? In the dense forest, Yin Nuoxing and Chu Yingxian were running down the mountain side by side. The latter looked at the red area in the sky and suddenly asked, there are 16 areas. and a holy artifact will appear at random times in each area. 10 hours before the appearance of the holy artifact, all the tokens will clearly inform the Academy that has obtained the holy artifact is qualified to proceed with the next step. Of course, forces that are not from the Academy that have obtained the holy artifact can also participate as long as there are enough people who are mentally prepared, Yin Nuoxing said in a deep voice. Chu Yingzhan plucked a red flower that was growing strangely by the roadside and threw it into her mouth. She casually chewed a few times and swallowed it into her stomach. The flower immediately turned into a huge red energy that dispersed into her limbs and bones. Wow, it's like fighting a beast. It's a pity that it's not an earth elemental. The fire elemental was wasted. TSK, why did this fairy have to have an earth elemental? Wouldn't it be better if it was a light elemental? Lightning elemental would work too. Earth elemental doesn't suit a young fairy like me. Chu Yingzhan smacked her lips and let out a long sigh. You should tell this to your father. Ask him why he gave birth to an earth elemental for you. Yin Nuoxing's indifferent words instantly silenced Chu Yingzhan. If she really dared to ask, she was afraid that she would be hung up and spanked. Bang! Bang! The explosion of Yuan Qi caused the earth to tremble. The sound that came from afar made Yin Nuoxing and Chu Yingzhan's footsteps tremble. Their eyes flickered slightly. Chu Yingzhan cast his gaze in that direction. The super eyes that the Eye of the Ocean gave him were not suppressed by the power of the rules here, allowing him to see the movements in the distance. Go and deal with them? Chu Yingzhan rolled up her sleeves, looking eager to try, which made Yin Nuoxing a little speechless. Shaking his head, Yin Nuoxing withdrew his gaze and continued to run forward. He also picked up some heavenly treasures with great energy by the roadside and threw them into his new portable space. This space was born in that peaceful world and did not disappear when they left. This space was bound to one's mind. No one could open it except for himself. It would also close completely with the death of its owner, and the things inside would be annihilated in the void. No, there are two groups of people fighting over there. There are 25 of them, and they're all in the Pantheon realm or even quasi-mortal realm. They came in a few days earlier than us. If we attack now, there's an 80% chance that we will lose. Let's find Xian and the others first. Glancing at the two groups of people in the distance, Yin Nuoxing sighed. It was a feeling of powerlessness, and his hands and feet were tied. Damn it, I'm not used to being restrained. Chu Yingzhan spat out Yin Nuoxing's thoughts. Ahem. Yin Nuoxing coughed dryly. Bear with it for a while. At least wait until I could draw out a divine artifact. Then, I should be able to sweep the whole battlefield. Your spiritual godly body is too casual. Chu Yingzhan glanced at him. If it was a spiritual godly body of another element, the situation would probably be better than mine. Yin Nuoxing scratched his head. Although I have 5 elements, I mainly cultivate the light element. Before I reach the demon realm, this element is not very useful. Moreover, I can't even use it now. Well, I can use a little bit, a very weak little bit. After all, I am only in the virtual realm. It would be great if I could use the elements. However, my soul and spirit are suppressed. What can I do? I am desperate. Don't you have that elemental divine art? Chu Yingzhan stared at him. This guy was the young master of the 9 Gods Temple. Could it be that he did not cultivate it? You know Yuan. Oh, you saw it that time. Yin Nuoxing was surprised for a moment, then nodded his head, glanced ahead, grabbed her jade arm, and turned in another direction, and said, There's someone over there. Indeed, he's cultivating. I'm also confident that I'm stronger than the others in the other 4 elements, but I haven't cultivated any profound arts related to these elements. Amen, as long as you understand what I mean. After being pulled in countless directions, Chu Yingzhan finally settled down. She stroked her long hair and glared at him. If it was not for the fact that the situation was not right, she would have kicked him. Can you do it? By the way, do you know where to find them? Yin Nuoxing nodded. I have a soul contract with Feng and Bing Er. They are in 2 different directions. Ming is beside Bing Er. Feng and Xian are alone. I don't know where Xian is. Oh no. Suddenly, Yin Nuoxing's expression changed. He hurriedly pulled Chu Yingxian to a stop. His feet left two trails on the ground. He only stopped when he slapped a tree at the side. Chu Yingxian and Mei Mao narrowed their eyes. This time, Yin Nuoxing did not need to see it. She also saw it. In the open space in front of the dense forest, there was a messy battle circle. There were two people facing each other. The ground beside them was littered with corpses. The two people standing there were two men. Their auras were much stronger than Yin Nuoxing and Feng Er's. They were both in the deity heart realm. It was obvious that they were captains. The man on the right was dressed in a snow-white academy uniform. On his arms, an azure dragon roared at the sky. A large deity character was imprinted in the middle of the azure dragon, giving it an intimidating aura. Between the two of them, the man in green robes on the left had a weaker aura. Yin Nuoxing and Feng Er's appearance did not escape their senses. However, the two of them did not pay too much attention to them. One was in the emptiness realm, while the other was in the divine soul realm. They were not afraid of them. They only glanced at them casually before retracting their gazes. Looking at the two people facing each other, Yin Nuoxing saw that they did not pay attention to his and Chu Yingxian's plan. He immediately heaved a sigh of relief. He originally wanted to turn around and leave. However, he suddenly froze for a moment. His eyes flickered slightly. Then, he suddenly laughed faintly. He moved his mouth close to Chu Yingxian's ear and whispered, "If you and I work together and attack with all our strength, what's the success rate of killing that man in white?" Chu Yingxian's ear was tickled by his breath. She shivered and glared at him. Then, she sized up the man in white with a serious expression. The latter was obviously in his peak condition and looked like he was in the middle stage of the deity heart realm. However, she was only in the divine soul realm. Moreover, Yin Nuoxing could not be considered as combat strength. The combat strength of an emptiness realm expert could be ignored. However, after hearing his muttering, she could not help but nod her head. "What? Why aren't you running away now? Are you trying to put on a show of the mantis stalking the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind?" When a man in white saw that the two of them were not leaving, he could not help but look over. He sneered, and the yuan qi in his body slowly surged. When Yin Nuoxing heard this, he scratched his head awkwardly and coughed lightly. Then, he pulled Chu Yingxian with him and turned around to leave. When a man in white saw that Yin Nuoxing had actually turned around and left, he froze for a moment. However, his expression quickly became even more disdainful. He sneered again and looked at the man in green. In his opinion, there was nothing to be wary of since the two of them were so timid and had yet to reach the deity heart realm. The man in green blinked his eyes and looked suspiciously at Yin Nuoxing's back. He vaguely felt a sense of familiarity. Moreover, the energy fluctuations emitted from the latter's body were also somewhat familiar. However, he sighed a moment later. It was useless even if he was familiar with them. Yin Nuoxing and Chu Yingxian were too weak. They had been in here for a few days and had yet to reach the deity heart realm. It was destined that they would not gain much from this secret realm. When Yin Nuoxing and Chu Yingxian turned around, they took a deep breath. Yin Nuoxing grinned and muttered softly. After muttering it 3 times, Chu Yingxian's eyes suddenly turned sharp and the two of them disappeared from their original spot like a beam of light. Bang! The man in white's expression suddenly trembled as a terrifying sense of danger arose spontaneously. Almost at the same instant, his expression changed slightly. A violent yuan qi and 2 fists suddenly appeared close to his face. He did not even have time to react before he received 2 punches and a kick to his abdomen. His entire body flew out as a mouthful of blood mixed with a few broken teeth drew an arc in the air. The man in green was stunned for a moment before a fierce aura surged in his eyes. At this moment, he did not care why Yin Nuoxing and Chu Yingxian had suddenly attacked. His figure flashed and appeared behind the man in white, ruthlessly landing a palm strike on his back. The latter immediately spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground in a sorry state. The entire process was so fast that it only took half a breath's time. If it was an immortal or demonic realm expert, the latter would still have a moment to react. However, The man in white was also suppressed to the deity heart realm. How could he possibly block the light element's instantaneous attack? Beautiful. Fortunately you were able to react and land a blow. Otherwise, we might not have been able to kill him. Yin Nuashing walked forward with a faint smile. The long hair on her back slowly turned pale under Chu Yingzhan's astonished gaze. In just a second, only 1/3 of the color remained. This guy, he uses his life force at the drop of a hat. Chu Yingzhan sighed helplessly. It was fortunate that he could think of using his life force as a bridge to use the light element. Even if it was only a little bit, this little bit was enough to become a fatal weapon for people below the mortal realm. The man in green smiled bitterly and waved his hand. He kicked the man in white who had fainted on the ground and cupped his hands towards Yin Nuashing and Chu Yingzhan. Puzzled, he asked, "You are?" Yin Nuashing smiled and took out the Long Guang Academy's token. The man in green suddenly realized, "Long Guang, we are on the same side. No wonder you would attack. However, this place is very far from the Long Guang Academy's camp. Why are you here? Moreover, your aura. We are late. We just came in." Yin Nuashing nodded with a smile. Just came in? The man in green was stunned for a moment. The door to the secret realm had been closed for a few days. How could it just... Thinking of this, he sized up Yin Nuashing's face again. Then, he sucked in a breath of cold air. "You're Yuan Guang's." "Shoo." Yin Nuashing raised a finger in front of his mouth and shook his head with a faint smile. The man in green shuddered for a moment before nodding in understanding. He crouched down and searched the man in white twice before taking out his ring. Then, he ran to the group of people lying on the ground and took out the storage devices of the students in white. Those bastards from Celestial Godly Academy. They joined forces with many other academies in the secret plane. There was even a group of external forces suppressing the Elemental Academy. There was fighting all over the area. We snuck out, and I didn't expect to be ambushed. The man in green sighed. He was from Revolving Wood Academy, one of the Elemental Academies. He was only the captain of a small team. After sighing, he threw 4 to 5 storage devices to Yin Nuashing and laughed lightly. "Although I don't know how you guys came in, but you guys are late by a few days. There are many good things here that should be useful. Without you guys, we would probably all die here. Although killing is forbidden in the academy, but this bunch of bastards. Anyway, can you help me transport them back? Our campsite is not far away." Then he pointed in a direction. Yin Nuashing casually took the storage items and looked in that direction. It didn't take her long to find the camp he was talking about. She smiled and nodded at Chu Yingzhan. "Come and help." Why would a girl let me do something like this? The 3 took the 9 people and ran away. Chu Yingzhan kept complaining. Yin Nuashing glanced at her, then looked at the person floating behind her, then looked at the 4 people hanging behind him. He rolled his eyes. The camp of the Revolving Wood Academy was located on a plain. After leaving the dense forest, Yin Nuashing used his eyes to observe 360 degrees without any blind spots. From time to time, he would stop and turn around. After confirming that it was safe, he would signal to the 2 people and then continue to run. This made him feel very sullen, as if he was a thief. However, the rules here did not reason with him, so he could only grit his teeth and endure. Fortunately, they didn't see anyone along the way. The 3 of them smoothly left the fire elemental sky and entered the wood elemental territory on the side. At the entrance of a plain near a mountain, they found the Revolving Wood Academy's camp that the green-clothed man had mentioned. Although it was called a camp, this camp looked quite simple and crude. It was just a tent. It probably didn't take more than a minute to set it up. It was also very fast to put it away. As if he saw Yin Nuashing's astonishment, the green-clothed man smiled faintly. "It's impossible to stay here forever. We're only temporarily staying here, near the wood elemental territory, to recover our strength as much as possible. After that, we'll wait for the sacred object to descend. It's actually quite easy to recover strength in the early stages. The top few in our academy have already recovered to the mortal rank in the past few days." "What is the sacred object?" Yin Nuashing couldn't help but ask. The green-robed man shook his head and said, "That's only what the rules say. In reality, We don't even know what the so-called sacred artifact is, but it's the pass to the second stage. TSK. There are close to 600,000 academies that have entered the hidden realm, and there are even more from other forces. Didn't you guys see it that day? When we were collectively teleporting, there was a sea of people. I would even believe it if you said that there were 100 million people. Fortunately, this hidden realm is extremely large. The second stage, Yin Nuashing muttered to herself for a moment. Speaking of which, this secret realm. Why did the Divine Order Academy hold this secret realm in the end? The green-clothed man stared blankly and smiled bitterly. It seemed that this guy didn't know much about this before he was pulled into the stage. He coughed lightly and grinned. The quota to the little divine land. This is the final reward for the trip to the secret realm. As for the reason, I'm not sure either. Even if this quota was given to the Revolving Wood Academy, it wouldn't be mine. I'm also self-aware. The teachers often say that the little divine land isn't a place you can enter just because you want to. Although, I don't understand it. Looking at the scale of this trip to the secret realm, I can roughly imagine how difficult it is. 100 million people fighting over 100 people's quota. How difficult do you think it is? My goodness, only 1 out of a million people is qualified to enter. That place has been praised to the heavens. Yin Nuashing and Chu Yingzhan looked at each other, then bitterly smiled. Their understanding of this place was still a bit lacking. They had heard the elders of their families talk about the little divine land many times, and for what they heard, it was quite easy to enter. They didn't expect that it would be so difficult here, where 1 million people would fight to the death for a single spot. Half an hour later, Yin Nuashing's group stopped in front of the Revolving Wood Academy's camp. The green-clothed man wanted to let them in to rest. Forget it. It's not time to rest yet. We have to find someone. Looks like the punishment for coming in through the back door is to scatter us. Yin Nuashing waved her hand and sighed. The green-clothed man smiled wryly and nodded. Then I won't stay any longer. I wish you good luck. Oh right, I almost forgot. The Celestial Academy's people are looking for you, and they're very aggressive. I don't know why, but be careful. Yin Nuashing froze for a moment and nodded. She smiled faintly and waved her hand casually. Let them search. Anyway, let's find someone and set a small goal. We'll talk after we survive. After saying that, the two rushed out of the plains. The green-clothed man smiled bitterly and shook his head. He carried the 9 people back to the camp. Chapter 827. Halfway up the mountain, on a large rock that protruded out of the cliff, Yin Nuashing gazed into the distance, his eyes circulating with faint ripples. The humidity in the air had slightly increased, and Chu Yingzhan, who was at the side, looked at his eyes with envy, as if she could hear the sound of the ocean waves. Hey, why did the people from Celestial Godly Academy look for you? While Chu Yingzhan was searching for a safe route in the distance on Yin Nuo planet, Chu Yingzhan took a bite out of a strange fruit and asked in a muffled voice. Yin Nuashing's eyes blinked, his brows furrowed as he hesitated. The principal of Celestial Godly Academy wanted to poach me, but I rejected him. He probably hates me. Puffed. Chu Yingzhan spat out a mouthful of saliva as she stared at him in shock. Her face twitched slightly. That's it. That's all. Is the principal of Celestial Godly Academy crazy? How did such a narrow-minded person become a dean? Of course, if she knew that not only did the principal fail to poach her, he even lost a high level 8 weapon, she wouldn't think so. Instead, she would sympathize with that old man. Who knows? Yin Nuashing shrugged helplessly. After looking at them for a while, he jumped down from the boulder. He paused for a moment before standing up straight. Chu Yingzhan also jumped down from the boulder. She finished the strange fruit in 2 bites and clapped her jade-like hands. You really don't want to eat? This thing can recover its strength very quickly. Casually taking out a mutant fruit from one of the spatial storage devices, Chu Yingzhan wiped her mouth and said, just 1 bite and you'll feel comfortable all over. You'll be able to extend your lifespan. You'll be able to climb a mountain in 1 breath, and you won't be panting anymore. Yin Nuashing stared at her in a daze. He opened his mouth but only sighed. He casually took out a fiery red flower and stuffed it into his mouth. The flower turned into pure energy and entered his body, fusing with his limbs and bones. However, Yin Nuoxing did not feel as comfortable as Chu Yingzhan had said. He felt the energy disappear from his body and waited for a moment. A black aura appeared on Yin Nuoxing's body like a flame. Along with it were 6 red chains, 1 finger wide. They formed a circle around Yin Nuoxing, spinning like a seal. There were also 3 black runes that formed a seal wrapping around him. Yes, I've seen the seal a few times and I feel that it's very serious. Chu Yingzhan swallowed the mutant fruit in her small mouth. Her lily-white hand patted one of the red chains. The ice-cold chain gave off an extremely hard texture. She used all her strength to break it apart, but aside from stopping it from spinning, it didn't have any other effect. Don't waste your energy. Yin Nuoxing sighed and waved his hand. These 9 seals should be the seals of this subworld's laws. It's basically impossible to break the seals. Even if I explode my chi, explode my seed, and take drugs, I won't be able to break it. In other words, all the power in my body is locked. Chu Yingzhan's jade hand reached into the pocket of Yin Nuo's windbreaker and took out a golden mutant fruit. She glanced at him and unceremoniously bit into it. She lightly smiled and said, "So powerful. I didn't think that there would be a time when the divine body would be restricted by the rules. Can you try to swallow the laws of this world?" Yin Nuoxing rolled his eyes. "Do you think I'm a Tao Tai? Swallow the heavens and devour the earth. If you want to swallow something that doesn't have a physical body, you need to use the origin formation. But the origin formation requires the power of the immortal rank. As for other things that have a physical body, you just need to come into contact with it. Even if it's a god, you can directly swallow it. It just takes a little longer. After all, only my power is sealed, but my constitution is still there. Then isn't there no solution?" Chu Yingzhan's eyes widened. After eating this golden fruit, the origin energy within her body began to violently surge, causing both of them to be stunned. A moment later, the energy within her body began to surge more and more violently. Only after a while did it slowly come to a stop, stopping at the quasi-mortal realm. Oh, I already have the power of the quasi-mortal rank. If I eat a few more, I'll probably reach the mortal rank." Chu Yingzhan happily waved her hand, then patted Yin Nuoxing's shoulder casually. She smiled faintly and said, it's okay. I'll protect you. You've always protected us outside. This time, it's my turn to protect you." Yin Nuoxing faintly sighed, looked at her helplessly, and smiled. "Then I'll leave it to you." Chu Yingzhan grinned and pulled Yin Nuoxing down the mountain. This was a world sealed in ice. The cold storm was mixed with pea-sized snowflakes, and when the snowflakes hit his face, he could feel a bit of weight. The glaciers extended from thousands of miles in front of him all the way to the end of his line of sight. Numerous ice valleys stretched across the frozen land, like huge geysers that were spewing out thick ice aura. Even the clouds in the sky were blue like ice. Boom! A huge golden wave of air crashed onto the ice surface like a tsunami. It was as bright as the sun, illuminating the dark sky. On the ice surface, sacred feathers fell with the snowflakes. The snowflakes beside each sacred feather would be erased and slowly fall from the sky along with the sacred feathers. On the surface of the ice, the girl held a golden holy sword that was more than 5 feet long. Golden runes lingered around her jade-like feet. Her golden eyes were dyed with a cold golden flame, reflecting the figure that had fallen to the ground in front of her. The young girl took 2 light steps forward and pointed the sacred sword at the man's throat. Her cold voice softly said, "Tell me everything you know about this world." The man who had fallen to the ground could not stop trembling. His pupils had shrunk to the size of a needle tip. His fearful eyes inadvertently swept across the group of people lying around him. Some of them had already become ice sculptures, frozen here forever. Those who had fallen to the ground were still burning with golden flames. He didn't expect that before they made their move, they would be in such a situation. The complete victory that they expected didn't appear. Instead, they were strangled by the throat. he didn't have a choice. He could only tell her everything he knew. He was only a small student of the academy. Even if it was those strongest students, they wouldn't be a match for the young girl in front of him right now. After knocking the man unconscious with a single strike, the sacred sword in the young girl's hand turned into golden rays of light and dissipated. The wings dyed with golden flames on her back lightly trembled and returned to pure white. She turned around to look at the young girl behind her and said, "Bing Er, aren't we going to look for elder brother?" Bing Er blinked her beautiful eyes. Her blue-gold eyes looked in a certain direction, as if she had crossed the boundless space to see the silhouette that was rushing over. Her red lips faintly curved into a smile as she lightly shook her head. "Big sister Bing Ming, I can sense Father's direction. They're coming over right now. Father has encountered some trouble. In this world, he can't use those powers that are outside of the norm. Big sister Yingxian is currently protecting him. With their resourcefulness, there shouldn't be anything they can't solve for the time being." Ming wrinkled her little nose. Although she really wanted to hurry over to Yin Nuoxing's side, she also knew that Bing Er was telling the truth. Looking at the dozen or so people lying in front of her, she lightly snorted. With a wave of her lily-white hand, a spatial storage device soared into the air. The storage device in the ice sculpture also broke through the ice and flew over, gathering in her hand. Then, she cut out half of it and pushed it to Bing Er. Bing Er looked at the storage devices in front of her and faintly smiled. She shook her head and put them back in Ming's hand. "Bing Er only needs the power here. Elder Sister Ming, use those mutant fruits. We are all in the myriad god realm right now. We need to recover our strength to the mortal realm as soon as possible." "Oh." Ming nodded and put away the storage devices. She raised her head and looked at the clouds in the sky. Then, she spread her wings and soared into the sky with her. Bing Er needed the power in this world of ice and snow, so she would go find the sunlight. In another world, the sky was like rolling thunder. Thunder and lightning tore through the sky, twisting the space. The huge wind pressure brought with it an indescribable pressure, causing people to stop outside the storm. In front of a huge cave, Feng Er pressed down her hair that was messed up by the wind. Her crimson eyes glanced behind her and suddenly smiled. After a moment, she looked at the cave in front of her again. There was no longer any gentleness in her eyes, only a sense of determination and sharpness. Myriad Beast Cave. Her silver teeth bit her red lips. Feng Er took a deep breath and no longer hesitated, stepping into the cave. Boom! Majestic energy rolled out in all directions. Sword light flashed and cut a section of the waterfall. A huge hole was also cut in the mountain wall by this sword. Bits and pieces of dragon roars dissipated in the air. Surround her. Kill her. Together. In the turbulent Yuan Chi field, the smoke billowed and a group of figures jumped out. These 5 figures landed on the ground. The leader spat, the snow-white uniform of the Celestial Godly Academy draped over his back. He raised his head and roared. His body turned into a blurry shadow, and the other 4 swarmed over like a swarm of bees. 5 elements sky formation. 5 elements sky seal, suppress. A tall and slender figure appeared in the dust. Ziyan's beautiful eyes were cold, and her deep purple hair fluttered without wind. Her jade feet were together, and a 5-colored array appeared under her feet. The power of the 5 elements surged and condensed on the Dragon Song's sword beside her, turning into a huge sword mark. The tip of the Dragon Song sword pointed directly at the 5 people charging over. With a slight tremble, the sword's shadow split into 5, and then turned into 5 long rainbows that shot out. Rumble, the 5 huge divine sword seals roared with energy, and the energy of the 5 elements in the world gathered crazily. The other elements fled the area as if they were fleeing for their lives. Wherever the 5 divine sword seals pointed, the air was split into 2. When the 5 of them saw the divine sword seal sweeping towards them, their expressions abruptly changed. The enormous pressure coming from the divine sword seal made them feel an extremely terrifying pressure. Immediately, they no longer had any scruples. With a roar from their throats, they heavily slammed their palms together. The yuan qi and yuan power within their bodies surged out like a tidal wave. Divine God Technique, Four Heavens God Seal. Boundless yuan qi and yuan power surged out, condensing into 5 huge palm prints that were 10 feet in size in front of the 5 people. The dazzling white halo shattered, and extremely complex symbols were condensed in the palm prints, carrying a terrifying power of the symbols. The powerful fluctuations caused the elements in this world to become chaotic. Soon after, the 5 people roared in anger and slammed out with their palms. 5 huge palm prints directly cut through the sky, heavily colliding with the divine sword seals that were pressing down. Rumble! The palm print and the sword print violently collided, and the energy they carried poured out in torrents, as if their lives depended on it. The violent shock waves overlapped and exploded with a loud bang, causing cracks to appear on the ground. The 2 divine prints also trembled violently after releasing an excessive amount of energy and slowly dimmed. Xian frowned as she looked at the incoming shock waves. She grabbed the Dragoncry's sword and casually slashed it in front of her. The shock waves that shook the space came into contact with the tip of the sword and only caused it to tremble for a moment before quietly dissipating. Xian took a light breath as she looked at the 2 divine seals that were about to dissipate and the 5 people behind her. Her hand that was holding onto the Dragoncry sword trembled slightly, but it quickly stabilized. The Dragoncry sword was also suppressed by the power of laws here, but it could still be used as an extremely powerful weapon. Divine Sword Technique. The long sword in Xian's hand emitted a slight humming sound, and the energy of the 5 elements surged into the Dragoncry sword. Xian held the long sword tightly with both hands, and lightly waved it in a special trajectory in the air. The tip of the sword streaked across the air, and ripples like water appeared in the air. A vast amount of energy continuously condensed, and only when it had condensed to the extreme did she withdraw the sword. Then she chopped down vertically, and a soft shout suddenly sounded from her throat. One sword to break the 5 elements. A multicolored sword light that was 100 feet in size surged out from the tip of the sword like a wave. After rushing out for a few meters, it suddenly split into 5 sword lights, each of the 5 colors of the 5 elements. Like waves, the sword light swept out from 100 feet in size, absorbing all the energy in the world. By the time it rushed in front of the divine seal, it was already 100 feet in size. Like a tsunami, it swallowed the 2 divine seals in all directions and then smashed down towards the 5 people behind him. The moment the divine seals dissipated, the faces of the 5 people paled. When they saw the tsunami-like sword chi, their faces immediately turned pale. They subconsciously retreated in an attempt to dodge, but by the time they reacted, it was already too late. The 5 sword chi whistled past and instantly engulfed the 5 of them. Chi 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 chi. Sword chi cut through their bodies, as if there were thousands of swords rapidly cutting through the sword chi. A huge force, like a meteor crashing into the earth, came from their chests. A mouthful of blood violently spurted out from their mouths, and the yuan qi and yuan power around them suddenly dimmed. Their bodies were sent flying by the huge force, and they rolled on the ground dozens of times before coming to a stop. The White Academy uniform on their bodies had already been cut into countless pieces, and their exposed skin had been scraped inch by inch. Not a single inch was intact. The force dissipated, and the bodies of the 5 people brushed against the ground as they came to a stop. The 5 sword chi also dissipated with a loud bang, leaving behind a 100-foot wide hole in the ground. The entire earth shook violently, and the 5 figures lying at the edge of the huge hole twitched slightly. Fresh blood flowed on the ground, forming a pool of blood. It looked incomparably miserable. In the distance, Xian swallowed her saliva and slowly knelt on one knee. She propped the Dragoncry sword on the ground and lightly gasped for breath for a while. Her body automatically absorbed the 5 elements energy in the world, allowing her to quickly fill up the holes in her body. Phew. After a while, she wiped the sweat off her face and slowly stood up, holding the dragon cry sword in her right hand. Her body flickered, and when she appeared again, she was at the edge of the huge hole. She pointed the dragon cry sword at the leader of the 5 people. Mei Mao's eyes were cold. "You want to kill me?" That ice-cold pair of eyes made the man gasp for breath. Looking at the cold sword chi that was aimed at his forehead, cold sweat immediately flowed down his face. He fiercely clenched his teeth and shouted in a hoarse voice, "There is an agreement between the divine great academies. Killing between students is forbidden. If you kill me, you'll be killed by the enforcers. The Celestial Godly Academy won't let you go either." So noisy. Xian didn't care and curled her lips. "Enforcers? You have to know what I'm doing here. Plus, you were the one who started it. You kept shouting, 'Kill her.' Why are you backing down now that I'm pointing my finger at you?" Little Star said, "If you want to kill someone, you have to be prepared to be killed. Also, you're here for me and Little Star, right?" Ziyin smiled sweetly. Her smile was incomparably brilliant. Even the sunlight shrunk slightly at this moment. However, it caused the man's pupils to contract abruptly. A feeling of death suddenly surged into his heart. "Oh, let me tell you something fun." Ziyin smiled faintly and ruthlessly pierced her sword into his throat. Blood splashed out and dripped on her charming face. Accompanied by that smile, she looked incomparably bewitching. That gentle laughter slowly entered his ears, causing him to lose all hope. "We didn't come in together with you. We just came in today. Oh, I don't have the Academy's token, so I'm not a member of the Academy." After he finished speaking, the man heard a few more sounds of swords piercing through flesh, causing his already shrunken pupils to tremble even more violently. He couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood, and his eyes gradually dimmed. In the end, he couldn't close his eyes. The Celestial Godly Academy is so boring. Xian swung her dragon song to get rid of the blood on the ground and sighed. She put away the 5 spatial items and the Celestial Godly Academy badge. With a flick of her hand, the 5 elemental fire burned and swallowed the 5 corpses in a few blinks of an eye. Xian didn't turn her head. She hung her dragon song on her slender waist and put her hands behind her back. She hummed a song and hopped forward, as light and beautiful as a fairy. It was as if the killing just now had nothing to do with her. The waterfall resumed its flow, and the lake reflected her beautiful face. Her purple dress was stained with blood. Looking at the fresh blood on her face and clothes, Ziyin wrinkled her nose. Without hesitation, she turned around and walked towards the lake. "I can't let Little Star see me like this." Chapter 828. The lair of myriad beasts in a dark mountain range. Yun Naoxing's jumping figure paused for a moment. Even Chu Yingzhan stopped and squatted on a thick tree branch. The latter looked at him and asked, "What is it?" Yun Naoxing raised his head and looked in the direction of Feng'er. He muttered, "I don't know." Feng'er went to this place and could feel a lot of powerful and chaotic forces, the forces that originated from demonic beasts, and they were all soul forces. That lair of myriad beasts buried tens of thousands of demonic beasts and demonic beasts. The huge forces mixed together formed a cold wind that prevented all people from entering. Feng'er is one of the 4 mythological beasts, so she's not affected by that place. But I don't know if her bloodline pressure can suppress those mindless souls. There should be an opportunity for her in there. Although it's a little dangerous, she should be able to handle it. That girl won't do something that will throw her life away. Yin Nuoxing waved his hand and leaped out nimbly. Looking at his back, Chu Yingzhan wrinkled her nose and snorted. She took out a strange fruit and took another bite. Then she followed him unhurriedly. The cold wind blew in the mountain range. This place was still the territory of the wood element. It stretched for tens of thousands of miles, and they still hadn't reached the end. On this day, they had to stop and rest many times. With Yun Nuoxing's current weak body, tens of thousands of miles was already a very long journey. He had to stop and rest, after walking for hundreds of miles. Along the way, they had to avoid those demonic beasts and demonic beasts, as well as some people with sinister eyes. In his opinion, people were more terrifying than demonic beasts. They were all people who risked their lives. Just on their way here, they had seen no less than 1,000 battles in this gloomy and cold mountain range. Some people were fighting with demonic beasts and magical beasts, but most of them were two groups of people fighting each other. They fought fiercely in the wilderness, and their brains were beaten out on the spot. Yin Nuoxing and Yi Qingyu sneaked past the edges of the battlefield. When they saw the scale of the battles between groups of 10 and hundreds of people, they could not help but sigh. This battlefield was really wild. Of course, they would be discovered from time to time, and that was when they could not avoid it. Hence, the development of the situation was heading in a strange direction. If someone dared to come up to find trouble, Yin Nuoxing would pull out his sword and slash without hesitation. Now, he was just a little guy in the virtual realm. When he encountered a group of 10,000 deities and quasi-mortal realms, he turned around and ran without hesitation. Chu Yingxian was busy beating people. Yingxian was beating and cursing while dragging Yin Nuoxing, while she was beating them, cursing and running. She dragged Chu Yingxian dragged Yingxian's merciful palm. A huge palm print that was hundreds of meters long came down from the sky with groups of talismans. The majestic power made Yin Nuoxing's eyes almost pop out. Big brother, I don't remember offending you. Cut the crap. Hand over all the heavenly treasures on you. This is an honorable robbery. At the same time, you can clean up the battlefield. The man in the sky sneered and slammed his palms down one after another, as if they were free. Yin Nuoxing turned around and ran. He was a person with moral integrity. If he couldn't win, he would run. He wouldn't scrupulously abide by the rules of battle. He wanted to survive first. The fewer people who snatched the holy object, the higher the success rate of getting it. This was an indisputable fact. Not only this place, but other places in the Jiesu mystic realm also had similar scenes. Everyone was fighting fiercely for the 1/16th chance of getting the holy object. When they met, they would be jealous and fight as if they were enemies. On the largest scale, they had already formed groups. They shouted one after another, and the fight turned into a 1,000-person group battle. Boom! The huge talisman palm print pressed down on the ground, causing the ground to sink by several meters. Billowing waves of dust rose hundreds of meters high. However, there was no one at the place where the palm landed. This made the man in the sky stunned. He shifted his gaze slightly and saw Yin Nuoxing patting his chest at the edge of the palm print crater. He had narrowly dodged the palm print. When the man saw this, he gritted his teeth fiercely. He looked coldly at Yin Nuoxing, who was panting. He bent his palm, and another huge palm print fell from the sky. Yin Nuoxing looked up and saw this. He immediately ran away. Faint light particles lingered around his feet. Even if he couldn't use the light elements, just a little bit was enough to increase his speed by several times. He once again dodged the palm print by sticking close to the edge. Don't run. Were you born in the year of the mouse? That person's face was ferocious as he cursed angrily and charged downwards. However, before he could get very far, a slender figure suddenly appeared in front of him. At the same time, a delicate and small fist appeared. It contained a great amount of power. The former was unable to stop in time, and his face directly collided with the fist. After that, he was sent flying and spat out a mouthful of blood at the same time. Bang! The man fell heavily on the ground, causing cracks to appear on the ground. Yin Nuoxing ran over again and looked at the man whose face had been dented. He couldn't help but twitch his mouth. He nimbly took out the spatial storage device on his body and gave it a fierce kick. I'm running. You can't beat me, but you won't allow me to run? If you're not happy, come and hit me. The man rolled a few times like a gore before he stopped. When he heard this, he spat out another mouthful of blood and fainted. Yin Nuoxing wiped his sweat and looked at the people who were lying on the ground and wailing. He sighed. This was already the 6th wave of people they had encountered. He did not know how long they would have to hold on before they reached the ice plains. The space beside him shook and a slender figure flashed out. Yin Nuoxing glanced at her. Before he could say anything, Chu Yingxian grabbed him by the collar and shook him vigorously. She roared in a flustered and exasperated manner. "Since when did this fairy become your fighter? Speaking of which, can't you change to a better route? We have few people and are weak. Hide! Hide! Do you want me to teach you how to hide?" Yin Nuoxing was shaken until he was dizzy. He struggled to reach out and press her head. Only then did she stop and let him catch his breath. He smiled bitterly and said, "Didn't you say that you'll protect me? I've already tried my best to avoid most of the people, at least 80% of the battles. It's said that the time for the first holy object to descend is approaching. Someone has started to clean up the place. Also, it's surrounded by a sea of people now. No, it's surrounded by a sea of people. There are people everywhere. There's nowhere to hide." Chu Yingxian thought about it for a while and felt that it was true. She didn't refute anything. However, after thinking about it carefully, she felt that something was wrong. However, she couldn't tell what was wrong. She could only frown and stare at Yin Nuoxing unhappily. Yin Nuoxing laughed dryly and looked into the distance. "How's your strength recovering?" "It's okay." Speaking of this, Chu Yingxian habitually took out a flower and stuffed the whole plant into her mouth. "It's almost back to the mundane level. It's just that I've been eating a little too much grass and fruits recently. Although they're delicious, I'm tired of them. I want to eat meat. This fairy wants to eat meat. I want to eat heartily. I want to pile up into a mountain of meat." As Chu Yingxian spoke, she stomped her feet again. Just as she took out the strange fruit in her hand, her expression changed. It was green and red. Her jade-like hand shook violently, and she threw the strange fruit in her hand thousands of meters away. Yin Nuoxing covered her face speechlessly. This was a special time, and all the magical beasts were hiding. Where was she going to find meat? She had eaten grass for a whole day. As long as she had energy, she wouldn't starve to death. Although she was tired of it, it was fortunate that these spiritual items could replenish her spiritual energy. Otherwise, she would have to find a place to rest. Swish! In the sky, a series of rainbows swept past. Powerful auras descended from the sky, and the entire mountain range calmed down for a moment. "Wow!" Chu Yingxian cried out in surprise. "Wow, your head! Hurry up and run!" Yin Nuoxing's expression changed. She hurriedly pulled her and ran far away. In a moment of desperation, she even threw out a bit of light element. However, that large group of figures didn't come for the two of them. When the two of them stopped on a large tree and turned around, they saw that the group that had just arrived was fighting fiercely with another group. The fight was in full swing, and the mountain range was collapsing. "Since the two young ladies are in such a good mood, why don't we accompany you?" Suddenly, a faint laughter was heard. Yin Nuoxing and Chu Yingxian were startled. They quickly turned around and saw that the nearby trees were filled with people. There were a total of 8 quasi-mortal rank experts, but they were only at the quasi-mortal rank. This made the two of them heave a sigh of relief. Just as they heaved a sigh of relief, Yin Nuoxing stared at Chu Yingxian. From each other's eyes, they could see the complicated message of, "Why didn't you see them coming? I thought you saw them. I thought you sensed them." Their eyes met again. Yin Nuoxing and Chu Yingxian raised their hands and slapped each other's heads. Then they smiled bitterly and silently turned to look at the 8 people. They took a deep breath and rushed out, waving their fists and legs. "F*CKU, are you going to accompany your aunt? I'm a man. Hey, are you dead yet?" Chu Yingxian squatted on the ground, panting with her mouth slightly open. She looked at Yin Nuoxing, who was lying on the ground, and poked his face with her jade-like hand. After a fierce battle, Yin Nuoxing didn't know why he rushed out. According to their plan, he would run away, and Chu Yingxian would defeat them one by one. Just now, he rushed forward as if he had gone crazy. He was only at the emptiness realm. Although he defeated one person by risking his life, to be precise, he scared the other person and knocked the other person until half of his body was paralyzed. This time, even his life force was almost depleted. He would be weak for a while. Golden red blood slowly flowed out from his arms and legs. Yin Nuoxing opened his eyes weakly and looked at the beautiful face that was close to him. He forced a smile and said, "I won't die, probably." Boom. The energy waves from the battle far away swept across the entire mountain range and hit the two of them. The hot wind blew their long hair slightly. Chu Yingxian lifted Mei Mao and looked into the distance. She took out the clothes that she wore in the peaceful world from her portable space and tore them. She wrapped them around Yin Nuoxing's wound and sighed. What a weak body. Have you ever thought that this day would come when you are so strong? Yin Nuoxing smiled faintly and nodded. I'm used to getting injured, but I'm not used to recovering so slowly. Besides, I usually get injured by myself or by God-level experts. It would be a joke if people knew that I was injured by someone who was at the mortal level. However, this place is special, so I don't think people will laugh at me. This world is really crazy. I finally know why so many people die when they go out of the Jiesu secret realm. With this kind of fighting method, let alone 100 million people, even 1 billion people will die one day. Yin Nuoxing sighed. He raised his right hand weakly and then put it down weakly. He straightened his body slightly and looked at the beautiful bows on his left arm and left leg. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. Was he trying to find joy in the midst of suffering? Sigh, I'll let their baby get injured. When they see me, they will definitely attack me. You have to protect me. I can't beat them. Chu Yingxian looked at Yin Nuoxing and shrugged helplessly. Yin Nuoxing smiled bitterly. Can you stand up? Oh, I can't. Chu Yingxian asked and answered her own question. Then, she sighed and lifted Yin Nuoxing's half-crippled body up. She placed him on her back and carried him up with a little force. Yin Nuoxing was slightly stunned. He subconsciously wrapped his arms around her neck. He didn't expect her to do this. He thought that Chu Yingxian was already treating him well by dragging him behind her. We can't stay here for long. Chu Yingxian's beautiful face was slightly red. She turned her head and glared at him fiercely. If you dare to move, I will throw you down. Okay. Yin Nuoxing nodded lightly. His eyelids were slightly trembling. I'm sorry. Why are you acting so strangely? I didn't say anything. Chu Yingxian's delicate body trembled. She hugged his legs and took a light breath. Then, she jumped into the distance. Fortunately, Yin Nuoxing's body was slightly thin. Although he was tall, he was still quite thin. Even if he was curled up, he would still be very small. It was much easier for her to move. I'm just lamenting. Yin Nuoxing raised his head and looked at the sky. He let out a long sigh. It's so ugly. You look so carefree outside. But in this Jiesu realm, you have been tormented like this in just one day. What nonsense are you talking about? The rules of this world are the biggest disadvantage for you. It's already not easy for you to stay alive. Don't ask for too much. Who asked you to have so much power outside the rules? Now, you have been sealed so thoroughly. Chu Yingxian turned around and rolled her eyes at him. Yin Nuoxing smiled. She was right. It was like he was reaping what he sowed. One day later, Chu Yingxian's speed gradually slowed down. Sweat began to appear on her smooth forehead. After all, she was still a girl. Her physical strength was slightly weak. She had carried Yin Nuoxing for an entire day with her mortal realm strength. No matter how light the latter was, and no matter how many heavenly and earthly treasures she had to support her recovery, the physical and mental exhaustion was a little overwhelming. After rushing for a day and a night without sleep, they finally left the chaotic area. Yin Nuoxing and the others realized that the Dark Mountain Range was the dark area of the Wood Elemental region. No wonder there were so many people inside. They had accidentally entered the high-risk area. Now that they had arrived at the light-colored area, there were much fewer people. Let's take a break. We haven't rested for 2 days, Yin Nuoxing carefully suggested as he looked at Chu Yingxian's side profile. Chu Yingxian frowned slightly. The sweat on her forehead was getting bigger. Yin Nuoxing couldn't stand it anymore. He carefully wiped her sweat with his sleeve. The former's delicate body trembled slightly, and her face turned a little red. However, she didn't say anything. She stubbornly carried him and ran for a distance. Half an hour later, when the two had completely reached the edge of the area, Chu Yingxian finally stopped after Yin Nuoxing's tense suggestion. After placing Yin Nuoxing in a secluded place, Chu Yingzhan rested for a while. She looked outside and said softly, "There were so many people just now. It was a little abnormal. I'll go out and take a look. Don't walk around casually. With your current aura, no one can sense you. Unless your luck is so bad that someone directly sees this place." After saying that, she raised her head and looked at the dense stone wall piled up with huge rocks. After making several turns, she finally saw Yin Nuoxing's position. Yin Nuoxing was stunned. He subconsciously grabbed the hem of her clothes and shook his head gently. Chu Yingzhan smiled faintly. She gently patted his head and said with a smile, "I'll be back soon. There won't be any danger. I'm just worried that someone will raid my house after you leave." Yin Nuoxing sighed. Chu Yingzhan. Chapter 829. His eyes followed Chu Yingzhan as she made her way around the city walls piled up from boulders. In this dark space, the only source of light was the night pearl he held in his hand. The weak light couldn't reach the high ceiling of the cave. Yin Nuoxing looked around blankly. His raised arm trembled powerlessly. The feeling of weakness coming from his body made him frown. His arm drooped down powerlessly. He was so angry that he wanted to punch his thigh, but he didn't even have the strength to do so. It was as if he was completely crippled. Weak as shit. After a while, Yin Nuoxing stopped making futile attempts. He smiled bitterly and sighed. He raised his head and turned it around. This was one of the few actions he could do. His soul felt blocked. Although he could feel the existence of Ziyi and the others, he still couldn't contact them. "I can only take one step at a time." Yin Nuoxing frowned unhappily. This damned place was simply created to suppress him. He didn't know if the others were suppressed as badly. Even if they were, it probably wasn't as serious as his. There shouldn't be many special life forms among 100 million people that could compare to the spiritual, godly physique. Oh, there's also Yuan Shi and the others. I wonder where they are now. Scratching his head with a headache, Yin Nuoxing tilted his head and looked into the depths of the cave. His eyes swept back and forth without focus. His hand trembled slightly, and the luminous pearl rolled down his palm and into the cave. It was the only source of light, and it suddenly fell out of his hand. Before he could react, he watched in a daze as the luminous pearl rolled further and further away. After a long time, when the weakness in his body stimulated his nerves, he finally reacted. Looking at the night illumination pearl that was more than 10 meters away, he sighed with a headache. In this dark place, this was the only source of light that was worth paying attention to. He was naturally afraid of the dark, so troublesome. He sighed resignedly and stood up with difficulty, using his palm to support himself against the wall. His legs were weak and painful. He cursed in his heart again. Seriously, how weak was he? After walking for 10 meters with his hand against the wall, Yin Nuoxing sat down on the ground. He simply lay down and stretched out his arm. He tried his best to reach the luminous pearl. After picking it up, he didn't want to move anymore. He lay on the ground lazily like a salted fish. The weak light illuminated the dark cave. His ocean-like eyes wandered around in boredom. In the dim light, he inadvertently saw something that made his expression change. He stood up slowly and raised his hand, holding the luminous pearl to let the light shine on the wall. He saw something unexpected. It was a mural, or rather, it was just some strange symbols drawn on the wall that seemed to have some meaning. Yin Nuoxing wasn't sure if they actually had any meaning. He couldn't understand these things. Perhaps historians were interested in these things. What really interested him were not those symbols. On the wall, there were two groups of mural that were half the height of a person and some symbols that were only half the size of a palm. The latter was hidden under the yellow sand and was located at a higher part of the wall. The mural was drawn at the bottom of the wall. The ground was filled with strange patterns that were 1 meter above the ground. These two patterns have different energy scents. Yin Nuoxing lightly sniffed as if he was really smelling the yellow sand. He frowned slightly. After being trained by Ziyi for such a long time, in addition to his spiritual godly physique, his ability to identify and sense energy had reached an extremely high level. If it weren't for this, he wouldn't have noticed such a subtle difference. "What are you talking about?" Yin Nuoshing murmured. His palm gently slid across the hieroglyphic symbols and gently stroked away the yellow sand. These symbols were filled with an aura that didn't belong to the mural below. An aura of withering and death that transcended time and space was constantly transmitted. Only a small area had these symbols and mural. It was about 4 to 5 meters wide. The deeper he went, the more blurry the symbols became. In the end, the messy carving destroyed a large area of the symbols. Yin Nuoshing looked at the destroyed symbols that had suddenly appeared and was stunned. It was as if someone had tried to decipher them, but couldn't understand anything in the end. In a fit of anger, they destroyed the symbols. However, for some reason, the symbols in front were spared and the mural didn't show any signs of being destroyed. However, he didn't have any more opportunities to study these. He hurriedly used his soul to memorize these seemingly useless things. He lowered his head and saw that his pendant was emitting a bright golden light. He touched the diamond-shaped pendant lightly, and a shield-like token popped out from it. A wave of information rushed straight into his mind from the token without his permission, causing him to be stunned. "Hey, harem guy, you didn't die in there, right? I heard big news. The first holy artifact has appeared in the wood elemental region that we just came out of." A loud shout came from the entrance of the cave. It was Chu Yingzhan's voice. Yin Nuoshing turned his head and coughed twice to clear his throat. He replied loudly, "I didn't die. Come a little bit. I moved a little. I just received the news." From the token, the first wood elemental holy artifact has appeared in the deepest part of the wood elemental region. This mountain range is going to become lively. 2 seconds later, a shadow rushed in against the weak sunlight. The figure looked around and saw Yin Nuoshing in a position slightly further in. He couldn't help but curl his lips. "Running in like that, are you afraid of death?" Yin Nuoshing rolled his eyes and turned his pale face away. He pointed at the mural with his chin and said, "See for yourself." Chu Yingzhan was also stunned when he heard this. Then, he turned his gaze and glanced at it casually before ignoring it. "It's just a mural. What's there to see? Let's not talk about that first. What about the holy artifact? There are still 10 hours before the holy artifact descends. At least 60% of the people in the entire Jesu secret realm are rushing here. Moreover, more and more people will appear later on for the holy artifact. What will we do? Of course, we have to give it up. Do you want to drag half a corpse and fight with tens of millions of people for that thing?" Yin Nuoshing glanced at him. "Not going? Aren't you?" Chu Yingzhan frowned. If he didn't go now, when the next few holy artifacts appeared, more and more people would pay attention to it, and it would be harder to fight for it. Moreover, he hadn't recovered his strength yet. That's for later. The most important thing. Yin Nuoshing shook his head and interrupted her, gasping for breath. Seeing this, Chu Yingzhan hurriedly went up to support him. Looking at his body's condition, she couldn't help but say in a slightly displeased tone, "Why are you so weak? Didn't I tell you not to move?" He smiled bitterly and shook his head. He couldn't say that he had to pick up the luminous pearl after it fell, right? That would be scolded to death. He waved his hand and continued. "The most important thing is that the rules didn't say that the holy artifact can't be snatched. Even if you manage to snatch it, there will be people who try to snatch it a second time, until someone manages to snatch the holy artifact and is strong enough to protect it in front of everyone." At this point, Chu Yingzhan also understood. From the beginning, the rules were very vague. It only said that they had to snatch the holy artifact, but it didn't say what would happen if they managed to snatch it. She guessed that they wouldn't be able to proceed to the next stage until all 16 holy artifacts were gathered. Yin Nuoshing pondered for a while. Now, all the people in the Jesu secret realm should be rushing here. According to his estimation, most of the top forces should have recovered to the level of quasi-mortal stage or even mortal stage. Of course, this was only a small number of people. Most of them might still be in the Pantheon realm or quasi-mortal stage. As for those who were weaker, there were more of them. However, it was difficult to turn the situation around with just the strength of those people. Let's not think about it anymore. Let's go to the ice field and find Bing, Air, and Ming. We can't do anything now. This kind of battle will definitely be a large-scale group battle. Individual strength. If I was in my peak condition, I wouldn't be afraid even if they were all divine emperors. Let's just forget about it now. Yin Nuoxing let out a long sigh. His decision was also very cautious. It was as if he had returned to the time when he was still mortal stage. However, at that time, he dared to challenge divine underworld experts with the support of Jin Wang and the others. Now, it could be said that he had nothing. Even his courage had dimmed a lot. Looking at him, clenching his teeth and glaring at the sea, Chu Yingxian seemed to know his state of mind. She sighed and didn't say anything. She nodded and squatted down to carry him on her back. They quickly rushed out of the cave. While there were still not many people, they had to run quickly. Once there were more people, they might not be able to escape. Speaking of which, I just did some research and overthrew my own theory. Yin Nuoxing said casually after taking a breath that contained rich with elemental energy. What? Perhaps if I ignite all of my divine blood, I can break through the seal of the laws here. There's a 30% chance that the stability of this world will decrease. After all, I have shaken its laws. Chu Yingxian was silent. After a long time, she said in a trembling voice, "You're crazy. Playing with my life is my forte. However, after this, I will fake my death once. I don't know how long I will fake it for. Maybe it will become real. I beg you, don't play with us, okay? Just leave the matters of this world to us. Can't you just peacefully allow us to protect you for once?" Chu Yingxian was about to go crazy. This bastard's words were astonishing every time. If he didn't scare someone to death, it didn't count. Yin Nuoxing smiled faintly and said, "Okay." Just as they had expected, this wood elemental region had become an incomparably huge magnet. Endless streams of people rushed over from afar. Silhouettes streaked across the sky. Some were alone, some were in groups, but there were more of them in the latter group. The overwhelming group flew over from afar in an orderly manner. That overwhelming momentum made the hearts of countless people tremble. This news had only been spread for 10 minutes. After a while, people from further away would rush over. At this time, many people were fighting with their lives on the line. They seemed to think that if they could get rid of one or two people, they would be able to increase their chances of winning and turning the situation around. In fact, looking at the many experts flying across the sky, no one was confident. It was frighteningly difficult to snatch an obvious target under the watchful eyes of so many people. Even some of the divine sons and goddesses of the major forces didn't have 100% confidence that they could lead their people to sweep the battlefield. Perhaps they could do it if they were in the immortal rank, demigod rank, or demigod rank, but at this time they were at most in the mortal rank. It was a starting level where they could be killed by relying on numbers. Everyone had been weak before, and this time they were just experiencing it again. Unlike the waves of people rushing toward the wood elemental energy area, in the mountains below, there was a figure carrying another person on his back. This scene was seen by countless people, but no one went to stop them. Although they couldn't figure out what the two people were doing, it didn't matter. Their goal was the sacred artifact, and they could ignore everything else. Damn, this number of people is making my scalp tingle. Chu Yingxian raised her head from time to time. The black dots covered the sky and covered the earth as they approached. In such a large number of people, hiding was almost useless unless they were invisible. They didn't try to hide and directly rushed in one direction. Fortunately, no one had the time to care about the two of them. The sooner they got there, the higher their chances of winning. Who would have the time to deal with two people who were alone? Bing Air and the others haven't moved. Feng Air is still in the cave of 1,000 beasts. Xian, we've lost contact with them. After we find them, if possible, we have to find Yuan Shi and Jining. We have to bring them to the Farlight Academy to snatch a sacred artifact. We have to find them. I wonder if Lin Sheng, Luo Yi, Mingyu, and the others are in this team. Yin Nuoxing tried her best to think of a way to increase the chances of her team winning. A team battle definitely needed a team to fight. Yuan Shi and Jining came with the 9 deities shrine, so there shouldn't be a need for them to snatch the sacred artifact. There were also people from the Snow Goddess sect. They were just fighting for a spot to enter the small divine continent, so they couldn't let Sister Shui do it. After hearing these conditions, Chu Yingxian couldn't help but nod. This sounds like an advantage. You can pull several teams together. You're the Axis. But what if they rush to the wood elemental region? Chu Yingxian asked again. It's not good to lose people now. Yin Nuoxing was also stunned, and her brows furrowed. Only the Far Light Academy needs to snatch the sacred artifact. The others probably won't join in the fun. As for the Far Light Academy, if the ones leading the team are Ding Mengyu and Shui Lingfeng, they probably won't be reckless, right? Probably? Not everyone can think like you. From what I know, there are quite a few impetuous people, and even more are people who have lost their minds. Chu Yingxian curled her lips and used her chin to point at the sky as she speechlessly said, nodding with a bitter smile. Yun Nuoxing straightened her body and looked into the distance with the help of the eye of the ocean. Her evil spirit eye operated with difficulty, and her vision spanned tens of thousands of miles. After a while, she stopped and said, "The blank area is about to end. If we keep going forward along this path, we'll soon reach the metal elemental region. We'll pass by the edge, and after crossing the metal elemental region, we'll reach the ice field. Bing Air and the others are recovering their strength at full speed. When we get there, they should be able to recover to the 11th level of the mortal rank, or even the immortal rank." Chu Yingxian's expression suddenly changed, and Yin Nuoxing's expression also trembled. The former immediately stomped her feet on the ground, and both her feet sank into the ground. She came to an abrupt stop as if she had taken root. Then, her eyes surged with coldness. Yin Nuoxing's brows furrowed, and she raised her head to look ahead. A group of 7 people was directly blocking their path, and their auras were completely locked onto the 2 of them. There were actually people who were bored enough to come and clean up 2 insignificant people at this time. Chapter 830. The sudden appearance of this obstacle made Yin Nuoxing and Chu Yingxian freeze on the spot. They looked at each other in dismay, and from each other's eyes, they could see messages such as, "Are these people stupid? Is there something wrong with their heads?" and so on. At this critical moment, not only did they not try to snatch the holy artifact, but they had also sent out 7 quasi-mortal stage experts to deal with the 2 of them who were traveling in the opposite direction. They must have had something wrong with their heads. At this time, quasi-mortal stage experts were already a relatively strong force. To send out 7 quasi-mortal stage experts so easily would greatly weaken them and the forces behind them. We can talk about this later. What do we do now? Chu Yingxian took a step back without leaving a trace. Her obsidian-like eyes flashed with some worry. She wasn't worried that the 7 of them would surround her. After all, there were only 7 people who had just stepped into the quasi-mortal stage. If they thought they could rely on numbers to kill her, then they were underestimating her too much. The only thing she was worried about was that in this seemingly unavoidable battle, there was still a person with limited mobility from Yin Nuoxing. If the 7 of them were to deal with him first, she would instantly fall into a disadvantageous position. What can we do? If the timing isn't right, just throw me away. Don't care, don't look, just deal with the 7 of them. If it's really a matter of life and death, at most we'll risk the 30% chance to cause this world to collapse and let 100 million people die with me. Without the strength of a beginner god, we won't be able to withstand the impact of the void. Yin Nuoxing looked up at the sky and casually said something that made her hair stand on end. "Please don't. I have a way to deal with it, probably." Chu Yingxian's pretty face turned slightly pale. This guy's words were too frightening. He wanted to risk his life at the slightest provocation. While the 2 of them were discussing, the 7 of them finally made their move. They uniformly lifted their feet and slowly walked towards Yin Nuoxing and Chu Yingxian. 7 pairs of eyes constantly scanned the 2 of them. Chu Yingxian swallowed her saliva and took a light breath. She also lifted her feet and walked towards the 7 of them. Her jade-like hands that were supporting Yin Nuoxing's feet slightly exerted force as the energy in her body quietly circulated. Yin Nuoxing blinked his eyes and sighed. He closed his eyes and buried his head in Chu Yingzhan's jade-like neck. He tried his best to mobilize all the remaining energy in his body. In fact, he didn't have any more energy left to launch an attack. He was just risking his life. If they really fought, even if he could distract one of them for a moment, it would be enough time for her to launch a fatal attack. As the 7 of them approached, the energy circulating in Chu Yingzhan's body became more and more powerful. She didn't even bother to hide it. On the other hand, the 7 of them turned a blind eye to it and continued to walk forward unhurriedly. The energy in their bodies also began to surge. However, what surprised Yin Nuoxing and Chu Yingzhan was that even though they were already so close, the other party still didn't intend to launch an attack. From the initial distance of 100 meters to 10 meters, they were now standing in a row. The 7 of them stared at them from the side. The energy in their bodies was roaring so loudly that it was about to explode. In this atmosphere, if any energy attack were to appear, the 9 of them would explode and cause their brains to splatter. However, no matter how tense the atmosphere was and how much energy was brewing, no one took the initiative to launch an attack. Walking to a position side by side, Chu Yingzhan and Mei Mao were already ice cold. Glancing at the 7 of them from the side, they saw that they didn't seem to have any intention to attack. She felt a little confused. After hesitating for a moment, she pretended that she didn't see anything and directly passed through the 7 of them. Following the path that they had agreed on, she slowly advanced. The energy in her body didn't have any intention of relaxing. She still hadn't seen the situation clearly, so naturally, she couldn't relax. The 7 of them stared fixedly at the 2 of them passing through the middle. After that, they sped up and left. There wasn't the slightest ripple in their eyes. Only after the 2 of them had walked far away did they retract their gazes. So, they must have mistaken him for someone else, right? It doesn't look like him. His hair color is different. Furthermore, his demeanor isn't the same person. He looks so weak. How could he be the Saint's target? I said it wasn't right from the start. You guys insisted on coming down. When all the good spots are taken, let's see how you guys are going to explain it. But that person isn't in the Long Guang Academy's campsite. It wasn't easy to find someone who looked like him. Isn't it because the Saint urged us to hurry? I didn't expect that we would mistake him for someone else. That woman isn't the one from that day either. We must have mistaken her for someone else. The 7 of them looked at each other and sighed. They shook their heads and no longer paid attention to Yin Nuoxing and Luo Yinyang. They got up and rushed toward the wood elemental area. They had only passed by and saw a similar figure. Their main target was still the sacred object. If Yin Nuoxing heard this, he would probably fall to the ground. So the reason why he had dodged a calamity today was because his hair color had changed? Shouldn't he be glad that he didn't have much vitality left and had a head full of white hair? In the distance, Yin Nuoxing and Luo Yunyang had already entered the gold elemental area. This area was especially vast. Rushing into this area from the edge of the wood elemental area in a straight line, it was difficult to see the boundary of this golden world. Not a single golden mountain range, plains, or lake was missed. So, what were those 7 doing just now? After arriving at the golden plains, there were gradually fewer people. Chu Yingzhan took the time to casually ask. I guess they mistook me for someone else. Right now, I can't even recognize myself, Yin Nuoxing said after thinking for a while. Chu Yingzhan turned around and glanced at him. She was stunned for a moment, then nodded seriously. Indeed, I can't recognize you. No matter what, it's naturally best if we don't fight. Right now, I can only run if I face other people. I can't even run away. Yin Nuoxing murmured softly. Chu Yingzhan nodded and tightened her grip on his legs. She looked at the direction and continued to jump forward. 10 hours passed very quickly. In the wood elemental area, countless people had gathered. That vast area was so exaggerated that there was a foot in every inch. If they couldn't fly, they would definitely pile up here. On the plains, forests, and towering ancient trees, there were groups of people standing in 2s and 3s, vigilantly watching everyone. Battles also broke out from time to time, but it was limited to the ground. Those who had reached the mortal level floating in the sky coldly watched the chaotic battlefield below. To them, the more intense the battle, the fewer people who would snatch the sacred object later. Not long after, the mountain peak in the deepest area suddenly burst open. Huge rocks that were dozens of feet in size were shot into the sky, turning into a vast rock rain that fell from the sky. The people below widened their eyes in shock and hurriedly moved their bodies, scattering like birds and beasts. The onlookers in the sky also retreated a little bit. In the center of the mountain peak, a huge emerald-green pillar of light burst out from the ground and pierced into the sky. The incomparably bright light illuminated the sky, as if it had hit a pentagonal prism. The clouds scattered a variety of colors. After the rock rain, it ushered in a rain of light. In the center of the light pillar, an object appeared. It was a 2-foot-tall cylindrical object that looked like a trophy. At the top was a green star that was an inch away from the top of the trophy. From time to time, small tongues of fire would erupt from the green star, as if it was ejecting a corona. Strangely, this star contained a huge amount of wood element, not a trace of fire element in it. Holy artifact. The appearance of the holy artifact made the atmosphere so quiet that one could hear breathing. Following a scream from an unknown corner, the people in the entire world seemed to have reacted. Countless amounts of energy surged out, and the aura of tens of millions of people erupted, causing the mountain forest, earth, and sky to tremble violently. The battle broke out in an instant. The people who gathered together were boiling with blood on the spot. The mortal ranks in the sky were fighting, and the quasi-mortal ranks on the ground were also fighting with their lives on the line. It was common to see people in similar clothes gathering in a group to form a joint attack formation. Even mortal ranks would be hit by the energy gathered by a large group of people below if they were not careful, causing them to be seriously injured and forced to retreat. The vast battle cries seemed to spread from here to a distant place. On the plane of the metal element, Yin Nuoxing turned his head. He did not hear anything, but he could barely see the chaotic battlefield with his eyes. 8 elements gathered, countless amounts of energy flew across the sky, and even more people were hit by the energy that came from nowhere. The overall situation was basically, who the hell is hitting me? Who the hell am I hitting? And who the hell am I hitting? At this point, the possibility of team coordination had greatly decreased. More people were fighting in a chaotic battle. You still have the mood to watch the chaotic battle at the back. Looks like you've recovered quite well. Chu Yingxian turned her head and glanced at him. I want to take a look too. It should be very lively over there now. It is indeed very lively. There are tens of millions of people gathered together. How can it not be lively? There are still people coming in from the outside. At this point, don't talk about the fact that killing is forbidden in the academy. The situation is simply out of control. Yin Nuoxing suddenly froze as he spoke. His gaze paused on those who were heavily injured and had to leave the battlefield. Those who were being pursued and attacked suddenly had a green light surge out of their bodies the moment they were about to be killed. Those who were severely injured instantly recovered from their critical health. What's more, those who had their hearts destroyed would also recover instantly. There were no dead people on the battlefield at all. The holy item is restoring the lives of everyone there. No one will die. Yin Nuoxing was shocked. This method greatly extended the duration of the battle. It was already a group battle with many people. At this point, he did not know how long the battle would last. Doesn't that mean we can still fight? Chu Yingxian's face twitched. She guessed. Based on what you said, I'm guessing that the 16 holy items all have their own unique abilities. They can cover the entire battlefield with this kind of power. It will be extremely difficult to snatch them away. Yin Nuoxing nodded. He also thought so. Furthermore, there was a 90% chance that this guess was true. Then, heavens I Hera man, where should we go now? Chu Yingxian patted his legs with her lily-white hands and sighed. I can't tell the direction in this place. Yin Nuoxing was stunned. He quickly retracted his gaze from the area in front of him. However, he did not see the ice plains. The direction they were heading in seemed to have deviated. This golden plain was too dazzling. It was so bright that everything was blurry. Their line of sight was golden like a golden ocean. They could not tell the direction clearly. However, it was just a direction. Yin Nuoxing used the supervision of the eye of the ocean to quickly correct the direction. After Chu Yingxian saw it clearly, she nodded and leaped in that direction. Yin Nuoxing was also staring in the direction of the ice plains. This golden plain was strangely confusing. He saw that Chu Yingxian kept moving forward and would inadvertently change her line of defense. Furthermore, it was just a slight change. Every time, it was so weak that it was difficult to detect it. By the time he reacted, the ice plains were already out of sight. Yin Nuoxing could only correct the direction that Chu Yingxian was heading in bit by bit. After a normal person rushed in, they really did not know how long it would take for them to get out. With such a bumpy way of moving forward, the two of them spent almost twice the amount of time to rush out of the gold elemental area. Furthermore, their direction was off, and they came to the other side of the ice plains. It was almost an area away from where Bing Air and the others were. Yin Nuoxing raised the collar of his trench coat to block the cold wind and sighed. How can we go astray after 4 days of walking? We ran from the bottom right of the gold elemental area to the top left. We almost passed through the center. The gold elemental area is quite confusing. How's the wood elemental area? Chu Yingxian looked at the wood elemental area behind them that they could no longer see and could not help but ask. We're still fighting. We'll reach the limit of my vision if we walk another 1,000 feet forward. My vision doesn't change from clear to blurry. Instead, I can't see anything. This is also the effect of the rules here. Yin Nuoxing said as he rubbed his sore eyes. There was a hint of bitterness in his voice. This damned place had almost turned him into a cripple. Fortunately, the newly acquired eye of the ocean had given him a pair of foul-level eyes. It was neither too big nor too small of a support. In fact, it was not very useful, but it was better than nothing. Be content with what you have. Do you know how frightening it is to be able to see the other side through a large area of the metal element? Clairvoyant could not catch up even if he risked his life. Chu Yingxian rolled her eyes at him. Not only was this guy not content with the eye of the ocean, but he also used its power to its limit every day. If he gave it to her, she would not even be able to wait to worship it. After knowing her thoughts, Yin Nuoxing looked at her with disdain. Things are meant to be used. You cannot open your eyes just because your eyes are too good and you want to cherish them, right? That's true. Chu Yingxian pouted and looked at him unhappily. Back then, I acted coquettishly for a year before I got an eye of the ocean for my stupid father. Moreover, it was still immature. It withered and spoiled not long after I left it. Do you know how deep my obsession was? Bad luck. Forgive me for not being able to gouge my eyes out for you. This thing can't be removed once it's bound, including the one in my heart. Yin Nuoxing shook his head helplessly. Then he was stunned. Speaking of which, why do you want the eye of the ocean? Because it's beautiful. Yin Nuoxing. As expected, he still did not understand how this guy's brain worked. We've arrived at the ice field. We're your precious little sisters. When Yin Nuoxing choked on his words, Chu Yingxian shook her delicate body to remind him. The former put down his messy thoughts and raised his head. In his line of sight, at the end of the horizon, the ground suddenly rose up to a height of 1,000 feet. The sea-blue horizon was particularly obvious. The ground was a majestic and magnificent ice field. On the thousands of feet tall ice peaks on the ice field, there was a never-ending snowstorm. Snowflakes as big as beans danced in the wind, ignoring their weight. The white world appeared abruptly in their line of sight. Even from afar, they could feel the slight chill in the air. Ice field, Yin Nuoxing murmured and took a deep breath. When you enter the ice field, turn right. Make a 90-degree right turn. If you go the wrong way again, I'll beat you up. You want to fight? You can't beat me now. Chu Yingxian grinned and said with a half-smile. Yin Nuoxing was silent. He really couldn't beat this female pervert now. Chapter 831. In the Frozen World, Two figures were facing the wind and snow. Their figures were leaping quickly on the ice field, leaving small footprints on the huge ice surface. The other person was curled up on the back of the petite figure. His hair was white, and he was shivering. The cold wind froze his tears and froze them on his face. His cheeks trembled, and the ice shards fell onto the girl's collar, causing her to shiver violently. The girl's expression changed slightly when the ice shards fell into her collar, but she didn't say anything else. The energy barrier blocked the wind and snow in front of them, but it didn't reduce the temperature in the barrier. She could still bear with it, but the person on her back had been staring with his eyes wide open. His eyes were trembling, and tears were falling down. Those tears even froze into ice and fell into her collar. "It's so cold. Turn your head to the side. My clothes are all wet." After enduring for a long time, Chu Yingxian finally couldn't help but say when she felt her back turn cold. Yin Nuoxing endured the pain and used her eyelids to crush the thin ice in her eyes. She used a hand to rub her face and smiled bitterly. "My eyes are about to shatter from staring. I still have to keep my eyes open to see the road. What can I do? I'm really desperate." Chu Yingxian thought about it and felt that it was true, but she quickly frowned. After thinking for a while, she quickly said, "Then take a look and close your eyes. Open them after a minute. Don't freeze to death on the road before I can run over." "No." Yin Nuoxing smiled bitterly and shook her head. Before Chu Yingxian couldn't help but scold, she quickly pressed her shoulder and said, "Bing Air and the others are in trouble. 15 minutes ago, a large group of troops suddenly entered the ice plains. Those troops should have come from the wood elemental region. Most of their clothes were torn and tattered, and there were traces of battle. They were charging straight towards Bing, and the others. Right now, the two girls are holding on with their individual strength, retreating towards the inner circle of the water elemental region. I will follow their position at all times, and, at the same time, change the direction of our advance to the left by 30 degrees. Yun Nuoxing's voice was a little worried as he controlled the direction of their advance. Chu Yingxian heard this and was stunned for a moment. She rolled her eyes and ran in the direction he pointed. "How much have Bing and the others recovered?" "They're close to the half-immortal level, but those people, mortal level 8 extremities. According to the timeline, they're close to the level of the strongest forces in this world. Those are all very strong teams. Why are they here at this time?" Yun Nuoxing frowned and turned his head to look at the wood element area. However, they had gone a long way into the ice field. He couldn't see the situation there clearly. He could only see that there was a large group of small battles at the edge. He could only speculate that there was a 70% chance that the holy object in the wood element area had not been taken away. Is there something on Bing and the others that is attracting everyone? Chu Yingxian also thought for a moment. In this strange world, everyone should be busy recovering their strength. How many people are there? There are at least 70 people in the battle. 100? About this number. There are even more teams floating in the sky watching the show. No one has any intention of retreating. Yin Nuoxing's face darkened. He didn't have much strength now. Otherwise, from thousands of miles away, he could shatter the entire sky with his spirit hong. Even if he didn't kill all of them, he could scare a lot of people to death. After he finished speaking, Yin Nuoxing fell into deep thought. His eyes flickered slightly. He made contact with Bing Air's soul and vaguely understood what Bing Air had just encountered. Then, his expression changed. Feeling Yun Nuoxing's body tremble, Chu Yingxian raised his head. "What's wrong? Don't tell me that the two girls really have something that attracted those beasts." Bing Air and the others took the key to open the void fortress under the glacier. It should be a very important place. This news has just been directly transmitted to half of the people. At least the Farlight College didn't receive it because I didn't receive this news. The Elemental College shouldn't have received it either. If they had received it, they would have passed it on, probably. Yin Nuoxing gritted his teeth. Damn it, they didn't just pick up the key. They brought back a barrel of explosives. There are hundreds of teams. How are we going to fight them? Chu Yingxian had a toothache. Why couldn't they all settle down? Didn't they know how to secretly recover their strength and wait until they gathered to attack? They were close enough, but their soul communication was still severely blocked. Yin Nuoxing could only use his eyes to look at Bing, Air, and Ming. The two girls used the glacier's terrain and Ming's powerful holy power to forcefully stop the hundreds of teams, although it was a bit embarrassing. Fortunately, the two girls did not suffer any substantial injuries. At this moment, they were retreating as they fought. They were constantly getting closer to the center of the ice field. The two people from Yin Nuoxing had no choice but to turn around and meet up. With the strength of the four of them, three of them, it should not be a problem for them to escape from the battlefield. He also saw some people wandering around the place where the first battle took place. It seemed that this message did not have any tracking function. It only informed everyone that there were two people here who had received this clue. The people watching in the sky weren't very strong either. They only dared to watch but didn't dare to join the battle. They were also wary of the hundreds of teams surrounding Bing, Air, and Ming. Celestial Godly Academy. Yin Nuoxing's voice made Chu Yingzhan's face twitch. They're involved. The main force, one team, 50 people. The leader is a mortal level 9. The other teams should know them. Didn't Xian Mu say that Celestial Godly Academy has allied with several factions? Yin Nuoxing's voice was gloomy. Why are these guys causing trouble so crazily? Can't they rest for a while? Chu Yingzhan slammed on the ice and stared at Yin Nuoxing. Hurry up, don't stop. Yin Nuoxing patted her head and pointed in a direction. It was where Bing, Air, and the others had to go. You think I'm a transportation tool? Chu Yingzhan fiercely glared at him. She lowered her head and bit down on his arm. The powerful occlusal muscles exerted force. Yin Nuoxing fiercely sucked in a mouthful of cold wind and snow that came head-on. Her entire body could not help but tremble. She hurriedly reached out and patted her shoulder. Be gentle, it's broken. I'm bleeding. Shit, it's frozen. The wound is infected, I'm going to die. After wailing like a ghost and howling like a wolf for a while, Chu Yingzhan finally gave a light snort. She lifted his legs and rushed forward. Yin Nuoxing looked at the wound that was so deep that it was bleeding. Even though it was now blocked by blood ice, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he looked at the fuming Chu Yingzhan. What was wrong with her? His body was currently so weak that it was about to die. Hey, does it still hurt? Chu Yingzhan glanced at him. What do you think? Yin Nuoxing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. My defense is basically 0 right now. You bit so hard, that's right. I'm not the one in pain. Chu Yingzhan snorted and turned around. Yin Nuoxing was stunned. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he shook his head. Hey, harem guy. Chu Yingzhan's soft call interrupted his messy thoughts. Yin Nuoxing rubbed his face and took a deep breath. After a while, he responded, Speaking of which, was he so familiar with this title that he could ignore it? He responded so naturally. Your token should be able to contact the people from Farlight Academy, right? Chu Yingzhan asked. Yin Nuoxing pondered for a while. After a while, he nodded slightly. In theory, it should be possible. Elder Yin Feng told me that the tokens are interconnected. It can send an urgent message to inform everyone where you are or leave a dying message. Let's contact the people from Farlight Academy. It should be difficult for us to deal with this alone. If your friends still care about you, they should respond to your call for help. It depends on whether you can put your face down or not. Chu Yingzhan said faintly. She didn't believe in people's hearts. People's hearts are ugly. Now that you mention it, I remember that I used to think that way too. Although it was just a thought, I didn't rely on these things. I don't know how deep my friendship is. Yin Nuoxing let out a long sigh, then shook his head, but Lin Sheng and the rest probably won't. Yes, they won't be like this. I don't have any face to lose. My life is about to be lost. I don't want my face anymore. After that, Yin Nuoxing didn't hesitate. He took out the token of Farlight Academy and sent his weak soul power into it. He hesitated, as if he was too embarrassed to speak to so many people at once. Who knew how many students there were in this world? However, this hesitation faded away when he felt a small hand gently patting his thigh. He mustered up the greatest courage he had ever mustered and used his soul to shout at the top of his lungs. Help! Lin Sheng, Dashin, Luoi, Senior Mingyu. It's an emergency. Celestial Academy is surrounding us. I'm going to die. This soul shout was not controlled well, and even Chu Yingxian heard it. She immediately staggered and turned her head to look at Yin Nuoxing with a slightly changed expression. She had thought that this fellow would not be able to lower himself to shout, but the words that came out of his mouth stunned her. This fellow was throwing caution to the wind. After knowing the urgency of the situation, Chu Yingxian didn't try to conceal herself. She didn't even try to conceal her aura. She rushed out with an imposing aura and even flew up midway. Flying for a long time in the mortal realm consumed a lot of energy, but she couldn't care too much at this moment. She took out the large pile of spoils she had collected and crazily absorbed them. She didn't care about the efficiency of the spoils. She just wanted to recover as much energy as possible in this short distance. After Yin Nuoxing finished shouting, he immediately cut off the soul connection. His pretty face was slightly red, and he did not check if anyone on the other side had received it. He only knew that if he continued to connect, when someone really responded, he would be so embarrassed that he would dig a hole and jump in. After a while, Yin Nuoxing stealthily contacted the token again and heard a lot of noise. A rough voice shouted, "Let's go to the ice fields. We can't let those bastards bully our brothers." He could tell that this was the voice of Chuan Jingshan's brother, Chuan Mu. Furthermore, there seemed to be a few voices frantically calling out his name from the token. Yin Nuoxing hesitated for a long time and did not dare to respond. He felt that if he responded at this moment, the group of people on the other side would greet him with questions. The two figures turned into streaks of light and quickly arrived at that area. After crossing an icy peak, a chaotic and vast battlefield appeared before them. Golden flames and icicles as thick as thighs burst out in all directions. The two blended together to form a special icicle firestorm. The battlefront stretched for hundreds of meters. Occasionally, huge icicles would protrude from the ice, and the golden flames would directly pierce through the pursuers or obstruct them. A large group of people flew around in the sky like flies, either going around the sea of fire or directly passing through it, chasing after the two figures who were desperately trying to escape. All kinds of energy flew across the sky, bombarding the ice field until it looked like it had been baptized by meteorites. Potholes could be seen everywhere. There was even an ice mountain that was blasted into the sky by the energy and then fiercely smashed down, shattering into a large piece of ice. Yin Nuoxing and Chuan Mu didn't try to hide. They directly charged into the battlefield. Chu Yingxian's aura immediately attracted the attention of many. Most of the people were startled and gasped. The group from Celestial Godly Academy was also startled. "Go! Harem Ball!" Chu Yingxian ignored the gazes of the crowd. Taking advantage of their shock, she shouted and used all her strength to throw Yin Nuoxing off her back. She waved her hand, and a large amount of stone appeared out of thin air. They condensed into long and thin thorns that revolved around Yin Nuoxing. Yin Nuoxing shouted and used up all her light essence and life force. She waved her right hand, and an ice brick appeared. She shot towards the Celestial Godly Academy's Extreme 9 like a cannonball. The ice brick in her hand smashed down as she shouted, "I'll smash your lungs." Before the crowd could recover from the shock, Yin Nuoxing's figure appeared in front of the Celestial Godly Academy's captain and smashed the ice brick towards his head. Bang! The Celestial Godly Academy's captain was also sent flying by the high-speed human cannonball and the brick. His expression froze for a second. He couldn't react at all. The energy in his body hadn't dissipated yet, but he didn't have time to defend himself. The light essence was out of the norm. It was the best choice for assassination and escape. That loud sound stunned countless people. The captain and Yin Nuoxing were sent flying and slowed down in a few breaths. Yin Nuoxing raised her weak hand and used the brick to smash the captain's head. Blood and ice shards flew everywhere. Although the people in the distance didn't see how painful the brick was, they could see from the extent of the captain's head that it was a fatal blow. Using sublight speed to smash a person together with a brick and taking advantage of the fact that they couldn't react, even a demon-rank powerhouse would be turned into a fool. Bang! The last brick smashed over, and the ice in Yun Nuoxing's hand shattered into countless pieces. The captain fainted without making a sound. His head flowed, white and red, and was quickly frozen by the extreme temperature here. The former had also lost all ability to move and fell to the ice below with him. He was very sure that this was the simplest and crudest fight he had had in all these years. Bing, and Ming Ming were also taken aback at first, but when they saw that the figure that flashed by was actually a familiar figure, they heaved a sigh of relief. They would not be able to withstand another such strong person. However, just as they heaved a sigh of relief, they were once again hung up. They saw that Yun Nuoxing did not get up from the captain's body, and the two of them quickly fell towards the ice. If they were to crash onto the ice like this, Yun Nuoxing would most likely die on the spot. Whoosh! The wings on Ming Ming's back unfurled, and her delicate body transformed into a streak of golden flames as she shot towards the Yun Nuo planet. Bing, and Chu Yingxian, who had reunited, stood side by side, blocking the path in front of everyone. The icy blue snowstorm and the brown storm of earth and stone combined into one, circling about 30 meters in front of the two. In the sky, the fierce battle paused because of this sudden development. When everyone reacted, their faces froze. The Celestial Godly Academy team's faces sank. Their captain had been crippled in a single exchange. No one knew what had happened in those 2 short seconds. They hesitated for a moment. During this time of hesitation, Ming Ming had already rushed in front of Yun Nuoxing and picked up the latter's body. Soon after, the latter's delicate body trembled. During the time they were separated from Chu Yingxian's energy barrier, his body had been tossed around in the cold wind to the point that it was almost frozen. Ming Ming picked him up as if he was carrying an ice cube. "Big brother, why are you so reckless?" Ming Ming hurriedly injected her divine power into Yun Nuoxing's body. There was a hint of blame in her beautiful eyes. She hurriedly carried him and retreated to Bing Er's side. Hee, crippling a leader the moment we met. It's not a loss. I just need to rest for a while. Just a while. I hope nightmare doesn't follow. Yun Nuoxing's pale face was almost transparent under the golden divine energy. She raised her head and looked at Ming Ming's angry, beautiful face. She forced a smile and then tilted her head. Her body that had been holding up for a few days finally fell asleep due to exhaustion. Ming Ming's heart skipped a beat. The aura on his body turned black almost instantly. However, when he sensed that Yun Nuoxing was only asleep, the black aura turned golden in a flash, making people think that it was just an illusion. Quietly heaving a sigh of relief, he hugged Yun Nuoxing horizontally, his 2 wings overlapping in front of him. The energy in his body flowed endlessly into his body, nourishing his withered and weak body. In a flash, Ming Ming appeared behind Bing, and Chu Yingxian. Looking at the large army that was eyeing them covetously, his brows furrowed. "Let's go. Big brother situation is very bad." We should have stopped him. Chu Yingxian looked and slapped her forehead. She wasn't the one who suggested that tactic. Yun Nuoxing was the one who wanted to do it. He crippled the leader of the Celestial Godly Academy and left them without a leader. Even though it was a good thing, he didn't look like he was dead. He was saved and didn't fall to the ground and become a pile of mud. Boom! After a brief moment of silence, it was unknown who opened the door, but a series of explosions came from the front, causing the 3 women to raise their heads. On the hard layer of ice, earth, and stone barrier, huge energy sparks were exploding. Under the thousands of attacks, the tough barrier was on the verge of collapse. Ming Ming glanced at Binger and nodded. Binger also seemed to know something and nodded slightly. She then took a step forward and opened her hands slightly. Her jade-like hands formed a hand seal. Her hands gently touched each other, and a delicate voice quietly rang out. goddess of snow, ice cover. As the delicate cry rang out, an explosion suddenly sounded from the ice plains below, causing countless people to be shocked. They hurriedly lowered their heads to take a look, and their expressions abruptly changed. The crowd scattered like birds and beasts, fleeing to the side as if their lives depended on it. The gigantic ice surface beneath them was rising from the ground with a rumble. In the span of 2 breaths, it crashed into all the people who could not escape in time. Then, it rushed into the sky like a wall sealed in ice. It was hundreds of thousands of feet tall and stretched out for thousands of feet. It was like a wall of ice. Those who were hit directly on the ice surface were stuck to the ice surface like flattened flies. They didn't stop trembling until the ice surface was lifted tens of thousands of meters high. There was a huge human-shaped pit on the ice surface. Chapter 832. The appearance of Yun Nuoxing and Chu Yingjian was as fast as a formality. Almost no one could react, and they even lost sight of the 4 of them. The gigantic ice wall stood tall on the ground, looking majestic and terrifying. In the sky, countless people stared blankly below. The battle had stopped because they had lost their targets. The students of the Celestial Godly Institute didn't look too good. They had mobilized such a large number of people, but the 2 of them had managed to escape. On the vast ice plains, the wind and snow continued to blow. Out of sight, they hid their auras and buried their heads in a pile of snow. Even passers-by couldn't see them. What do we do now? They don't look like they have a team. We have so many people. Why should we be afraid of them? They can't have gone far in this vast ice field. Hurry up and search. The young man holding the captain frowned. He looked around and snorted. Also, sent a message back. According to reliable sources, the Void Fortress is a very special place in the 16 districts. We can't let it fall into other people's hands. The leaders of the other teams pondered for a while before nodding their heads. Then, they spread out their men and started searching the huge ice field. The teams that were just there to watch were also a little confused. Then, they seemed to have realized something. One after another, people landed on the ice field and spread out in all directions. Now that the targets were lost, it meant that everyone had a chance to find the 4 and capture them. In this place, it was too easy to hide. For example, they could take the information for themselves. In the boundless ice field, there was an endless snowstorm. The snowflakes were reflected on the surface of the ice. As the snowstorm blew past, the snow on the ground constantly changed shape. The distant ice peaks were faintly discernible in their line of sight. This was an ocean of ice. A single snowflake could float thousands of feet away along with the storm. The world seemed very blurry under this whiteness. From time to time, 1 or 2 figures would dash out from the snowflakes in the sky, flying into the distance and disappearing from sight. Those pairs of sharp, eagle-like eyes scraped the snowy ground below inch by inch. Soul fluctuations constantly spread out in the air, allowing them to clearly observe everything within 100 jong radius. However, apart from the difficulty of observation, this snowy plain was also unprecedentedly large. The continuous snowy mountains and snowy peaks formed strange waves. There were many places that couldn't be detected. At most, one could roughly scan the ground from the sky. If one were to fly at a lower altitude, it would be very normal for one to accidentally bump into a snowy mountain. A group of people wearing the same clothes gathered on top of a snowy mountain. A dozen of them had a simple conversation. Then, one of them shook his head and pointed in several directions. Disperse. After he finished speaking, the people who had gathered for less than 10 seconds soared into the sky again and flew in all directions. Under the snowy mountain, a snow pile suddenly wriggled twice. In the vast expanse of whiteness, the wriggling of this small area didn't attract anyone's attention. After a while, a palm-sized silhouette drilled out of the snow pile. Its blue-gold dragon eyes flickered slightly. It looked at the people who were leaving in the sky and shook its body. The 2 pairs of membrane wings on its back shook off the snow pile. Even when the 2 pairs of membrane wings were stretched out, This ice-blue little dragon was only the length of an adult's forearm. If it was placed in this place, no one would notice it unless they stared hard. After standing on the snowy plain for a while, the little dragon flapped its four wings. Its small figure turned into a blue and white light and flew towards the snowy mountain nearby. It stood in a hidden place on the mountainside for a while. Its nose twitched. After confirming that there were no signs of living creatures around, it plunged into the snowy ground. The snowy ground wasn't a hard ice plain, nor was it a piece of soil. In the thick layer of snow, there was a glacier crack that was only half the width of an arm. It penetrated the ice seal from top to bottom and went deep into the ice plain. This hidden entrance was difficult to find, and with a large pile of snow covering it, it was almost impossible for people to find this place. After flying under the glacier for a while, he made several turns as if he was walking in a maze. Finally, he accurately found one of the crisscrossing glacial crevices. After flying for a while more, he found a narrow crevice that was only 1 meter wide. On the wall 1,000 feet below it, there was a hole that he estimated he would have to crawl through. After flying into the hole, the surrounding space quickly widened. The little dragon's body lit up. It shook in the air and turned into a tall and slender figure. The blue gold, Mei Mao looked at the ice bed in front of her. She first raised her head and looked at the ground that was a few thousand meters away from here. Then, she walked to the ice bed and sat down gently. Bing Air, how's the situation? On the ice bed, Ming hugged Yin Nuoxing tightly in his arms. Dazzling golden energy jumped around his body. When he sensed someone coming, he opened his golden eyes and looked at Bing Air, who was sitting beside him. No one will find this place, Bing Air said resolutely. Even though she was weak now, she still had a little bit of the power of the ice and snow divine right. The secret terrain created by this little bit of power was enough to make a god powerhouse badly battered. Ming nodded silently and looked at Chu Yingjian, who was on the other side. She was crossing her legs and putting her feet on the ice bed in an inelegant manner. She kept shaking the chair under her. When she saw Ming looking at her, she shrugged and said, "I'm fine. I'll be fine after I recover. It's just that it's a little cold." Ming nodded and said seriously, "Thank you for protecting my brother." Chu Yingjian waved her hand casually and shook the chair while humming a song. Although she looked carefree, Mei Mao peeked at Yin Nuoxing from time to time and asked subconsciously, "How is he? His injuries aren't too good." Ming smiled bitterly and shook his head. The sublight speed collision just now had broken many of Yin Nuoxing's bones. He was no longer as powerful as he was outside. In this place, he was almost an ordinary person. My brother is always messing around. The power of the rules has sealed almost 100% of his power. Even his recovery ability is very low due to the suppression of his body's constitution. The healing effect of divine power is better than wood and water elements, but my brother's body can't absorb this power. Chu Yingjian smacked her lips and said, "Just transfer some life force to him." The method of instilling it is simple, straightforward, and violent. The guy almost used up all his life force on the way here. If we don't solve this problem, the rest of his recovery won't be any better. That's why he can't absorb your power. As soon as she said this, Ming's cheeks turned red. His golden eyes stared at her, and his little mouth was slightly open. The most direct method. Of course she knew what it was. She had seen Xian and Yin Nuoxing do it before. Seeing her like this, Chu Yingjian's cheeks twitched. She rolled her eyes and said, "Little girl, I don't think I need to say more about your brother's integrity or your own integrity. You've already shown it." Puff! Bing Air spat out a mouthful of ice and looked at her strangely. Why was there so much information in this sentence? Ming hit Yin Nuoxing's head with his head and looked at Chu Yingjian in disbelief. How did she say this without hesitation? "I think you did it on purpose." Just as Chu Yingjian was about to continue teasing and Ming made up his mind, a faint voice suddenly sounded. The latter was shocked and quickly lowered his head. "Ah, Harriman, you're not dead." Chu Yingjian suddenly came to her senses. She jumped up from the chair and walked to the ice bed. She put her hands on her hips and looked down at Yin Nuoxing, who had just opened her eyes, and said with a smile. Yin Nuoxing rolled her eyes and said, Do you think I'll be able to hear such an explosive speech if I'm dead? You scare me awake. Don't forget that I still have an external consciousness. Yin Nuashing pointed at Bing Er and sighed helplessly. The former had a soul contract with him, so she could still receive some information when necessary, even if she was unconscious. As for whether she could wake up or not, that was another matter. Speaking of which, aren't you torturing me for a second? Ugh. Thinking of this, Yin Nuashing raised her eyebrows and raised her head. Just as she opened her mouth and was about to teach Chu Yingjian a lesson, he saw two huge wings close together. His vision suddenly turned dark, and he was stunned. The golden Mei Mao was shining in the darkness and was only about an inch away from his eyes. A soft feeling came from his mouth, and a fragrant wind lingered at the tip of his nose. A huge force rushed into his body somewhat awkwardly. Again, he was forcefully kissed again. Why did he have to say again? Could it be that he was weak now and looked very easy to bully? All right, he admitted that he was usually bullied by the girls around him. Xian and the others also called him a rag doll. Wow. Explosive. So explosive. I was just casually talking. I didn't expect this at all. Why don't Bing and I leave for a while? The space here is quite big, so it shouldn't collapse. However, the atmosphere was not very good. After all, there was a crazy person shouting at the side. He looked as excited as if he had advanced several realms out of thin air. Yin Nuashing was very embarrassed. But now that he had used up all his strength, he just wanted to open his eyes and refute the uneasy guy. He didn't expect to discover this. Would it be better if he didn't wake up? Ming's holy and pretty face was slightly red. The golden Mei Mao stared straight into his colorful eyes. There was a familiar emotion in her eyes. Yin Nuashing was very familiar with this gaze. He had seen it countless times from Xian, Feng and Yuan Qian. The situation is much better. After a long time, Yin Nuashing calmed down again. Half of her pale long hair had regained its color. Half of her body was lying in Ming's arms, and she fell asleep peacefully. Her body was suffused with a holy golden energy. Her transparent face had also regained some faint color. Her breathing was gentle, and her body was gradually recovering. When Ming and Bing Er saw this, they both heaved a sigh of relief. Bing Er had given him more than half of her life force. She should have been weak, but it was unknown if her life form had changed. At this time, she did not feel weak. If she rushed out and faced another encirclement, she would probably be able to escape unscathed. Angels were life forms constructed from energy. Pure golden blood flowed in their bodies. However, they could turn themselves into pure energy at any time and hide in the world. They could also hide in a person's body. They were almost immortal. Only by eliminating the weak consciousness contained in every trace of energy could an angel be eliminated. Ming's life form was no different from an angel's at this time. Even Palace Master Jean and the others did not understand what was going on. Chu Yingjian was frozen in an ice sculpture. Only her eyes could move. She rolled her eyes at the two and said telepathically, "I was wrong. Let me out. 10 more minutes." Ming and Bing Er rolled their eyes at her. This girl had just said something shocking. It was the kind of thing that would scare people to death. The two of them discussed and froze her to the side. Now it was much quieter. However, Chu Yingjian switched to telepathy. The voice that rang in their heads from time to time made the two girls speechless. After a while, Chu Yingjian walked out of the ice while muttering to herself, and the three of them began the next step of their recovery plan. This place was hidden, and it was impossible for them to be discovered. This pursuit made them miss the time when they had strength, and what followed was the motivation to recover their strength. This was Bing Er's home ground. Every inch of space was filled with her power. The huge ice field uprooting was done using the ice field's own power. The many treasures they collected before were given to Chu Yingjian and Ming. Chu Yingjian didn't say anything and started eating. Ming was still hugging Yin Nuashing. He also helped him recover while he cultivated. He also blamed Celestial Godly Academy for Yin Nuashing's injury. Yin Nuashing's body, along with his power being sealed, such as the divine artifact, the elements, and the soul, which were linked to his recovery ability, were all suppressed. His recovery ability was greatly weakened. The emptiness realm did not have much power to begin with, so it was impossible for him to recover quickly. Even the injuries he suffered were beyond the limits of the emptiness realm. A normal emptiness realm cultivator would have died on the spot after suffering injuries of the same degree as Yun Nuoxing's. Yun Nuoxing's power was only suppressed. Even though he could withstand the injuries, it did not mean that he could recover. This world suppressed the powerful people more severely, and Yun Nuoxing was the one who was most severely suppressed. Without an external recovery ability, he would probably have to continue recovering. Ming Ming seemed to know this, so he acted as the external recovery ability. The sky gradually brightened in the snowstorm. The light of dawn couldn't penetrate the thick snow. One's vision couldn't extend beyond 50 meters, and one's soul power couldn't extend beyond 200 meters. The howling wind swept through the entire ice field like the wailing of ghosts. The sunlight illuminated the clouds and mist. One could see a spot of light in the sky, which quickly disappeared. This was a rare source of light that hadn't been seen for a long time. Whoosh, puff, bang. In the howling snowstorm, there were sounds of moving figures, accompanied by the sounds of weapons colliding or piercing into bodies. Then, there was a stifled groan. In the snowstorm, there was a sharp, murderous aura. A colorful energy barrier condensed from the power of many people was erected in this place where the wind and snow were howling. It shielded a large area from the wind and snow, allowing the vision inside to quickly become clear. A large group of figures wearing white robes appeared. Golden patterns were faintly discernible on their clothes. Behind them was a dazzling golden temple, which looked very majestic and imposing. This is already the 28th team. There are about 300 people. Every time, it's either a sneak attack or a sneak attack. A man with a body full of muscles wriggling like mountains picked up a skinny young man like he was picking up a little chick. He smacked his lips and threw the young man onto the ice, causing the young man to pile up with a few other people wearing the same clothes. Chuan Mu sighed helplessly. Lin Sheng, how far are we? You really remember the coordinates, don't you? On the other side, Chuan Jingshan patted a young man with a calm smile on his handsome face with his thick arms. It was Lin Sheng. After not seeing him for a while, the young man's youthfulness had faded a little. There was still some maturity brewing on his face. I remember. Don't worry. In 3 days, even if we reach the place where the coordinates were first sent, Brother Yun and the rest won't just wait there. They will probably find a place to hide, Lin Sheng said with a smile. According to some guesses, it's more likely to go to the center. That's why we changed our route. Yi Qinglian's tall figure stretched slightly. Mei Mao looked at the group of people lying in a human pyramid on the ground and frowned. These days, I've found out a lot of things. Yun Nuoxing's group is being chased because they received information about the Void Fortress. Many people were gathered by the Celestial Godly Academy. That's why they gathered so many people, isn't it? Almost the entire Farlight Academy is here. TSK, TSK, TSK. A young man with a resolute face was holding a silver spear that was bigger than him. He waved the spear in the air and held the spear under his armpit. The spear was pointed diagonally at the ground. Xue Lingfeng smiled and said, "It doesn't matter that we're all here. The fight in the wood elemental area is still going on. It's been so many days, but the holy relic hasn't been taken yet. That's a hot potato. Whoever gets it will be unlucky. 16 people. Let them take their time. Compared to that, I'm more curious about how our little junior can still come in after the time limit." Ding Mingyu said softly, her beautiful silver eyes revealing a sense of coldness and alienation. Everyone said in unison, "It's not surprising what that guy did. Don't mind the details." Jun Luo Yi, who had a crown on her head, covered her mouth and chuckled. She exchanged glances with the people from Xianlong continent. The former couldn't help but laugh. It's normal for Mr. Yin to do anything. You'll get yourself into trouble if you care too much about these things. Ding Mingyu thought about it and agreed, so she let it go. We're here. While everyone was talking, Lin Sheng waved his hand and stopped the people maintaining the energy barrier. He then took out the token of the Long Guang Academy. Looking at the token that was emitting a weak light, he sighed. There shouldn't be any other Long Guang Academy students in a 10-li radius. I wonder where Brother Yun and the others are hiding. Ding Mingyu smiled faintly as she looked around with her beautiful silver eyes. She took out a colorful token from her spatial storage device. It was the one she had given him in the labyrinth. Token. Seeing this token, Lin Sheng, Chuan Mu, and the others were stunned. Then, a hint of joy appeared in their eyes. This token could call out to Yin Nuoxing and the others, and could also find their location. Seeing everyone's expression change, Ding Mingyu smiled and nodded. She opened her hand. The colorful token contained a trace of Yin Nuoxing's soul imprint. It paused in the air for a moment, and then quickly flew in a direction. The movement of the token made Lin Sheng and the others sigh in relief. They quickly waved their hands, and the group of people from the Long Guang Academy followed. Chapter 833. In the ice fields, the wind and snow were blowing, making it difficult to see into the distance. They had to be careful along the way. 100-jong-wide energy barrier surrounded a group of dozens of Beam Academy students. Their surroundings were hazy. Only those inside the barrier could see clearly. Bang, bang, bang. Amidst the snowstorm, a series of muffled sounds of flesh colliding could be heard. Sparks of energy flickered, but in a flash, they were covered by the snowstorm. A moment later, a dozen or so people passed through the edge of the barrier and arrived at the center. The people in their hands were thrown onto the ice. Immediately, the latter and the others grimaced in pain. Just as they were about to launch an attack, a long spear and many other weapons were pressed against their throats. The cold, murderous aura caused the temperature here to drop by a lot. 3 questions. Lin Sheng kicked the leader of the group and smiled. Where are the people from Celestial Godly Academy? Where are the people you were chasing? Is there anyone else sending reinforcements here? The leader glared at Lin Sheng and gritted his teeth. He looked at the group of people around him and measured their strength. After a while, he smiled bitterly. It seemed like there was no way they could fight back. The people from Celestial Godly Academy entered the depths of the ice fields 2 days ago. Nobody has found the 4 yet. Of course, we can't rule out the possibility that they've been captured. As for reinforcements, from what I know, there are at least 10 other groups coming here. Celestial Godly Academy is the most active of them all. They've already suppressed some of the stronger groups. After obtaining the information they needed, Lin Sheng and the others looked at each other and nodded. They knocked the group unconscious and left them where they stood. Whether they lived or died depended on their own luck. The snowstorm in the ice field had never stopped. As for whether they woke up first, or if they were found, or if they froze to death in the wind and snow, Lin Sheng and the others did not care. Ding Mingyu took out her token and threw it in the air. She quickly flew in a certain direction, the group behind her. Celestial Godly Academy has made a lot of moves, suppressing others, sending out troops, and targeting the Elemental Academy. Before we came in, Elder Yinfeng said they might target us, but it seems that they're still a bit off. Maybe it's because we didn't participate in the big operation. Chuan Mu smacked his lips and said, "Have you thought of anything?" Everyone pondered for a moment before shrugging and shaking their heads, indicating that they didn't know. Lin Sheng was suddenly stunned. Ding Mingyu and the others' expressions flickered slightly. All of them stopped abruptly and looked at each other in confusion. They took out their tokens and stroked them gently with their palms. A piece of information was injected into their minds. After a moment, everyone raised their heads and looked at each other again. Their expressions were even more strange. Ruins? Now, under this ice field? Zhong Songbai pushed up his glasses with a strange look on his face. It's from the Flaming Li School. They're also on this ice field, so it shouldn't be wrong. This message was sent to the other schools at the same time. Lin Sheng pondered for a moment and nodded. The information should be correct. As for the situation of the ruins, it's hard to confirm. Let's find Junior and the others first. Ding Mingyu flicked her long black hair and stared at the token in front of her with her silver-white eyes. Mei Mao blinked. The token stopped 100 meters in front of them. It was within the energy barrier and was still spinning in place, as if it had lost its direction. The token isn't moving? Is it broken? Shueling Feng walked forward curiously. However, before he reached the token, his pupils shrank. He stared at the ice field beneath his feet in shock. He could feel an extremely large amount of energy approaching them at a rapid speed. Something's not right. Retreat. Swallowing his saliva, Shueling Feng's expression changed. He shouted behind him and retreated quickly. Just as he retreated, the ice field suddenly shook violently, causing everyone from the Far Light School to be stunned. After hearing Shueling Feng's words, they didn't care too much and followed his orders out of habit. Everyone retreated as if they were on drugs. Boom! A huge golden flame pillar shot up from the ice field and pierced through the clouds in the sky. It burned a hole in the ice field that was more than 100 feet wide. The brilliant golden flame dyed the sky golden. Tiny golden flame fragments fell from the sky, causing the snowstorm to stagnate. This scene was incomparably sacred, as if the door to heaven had opened. Shueling Feng patted his chest with lingering fear. He almost ran out of the ice field just now. If he was a step later, he would have been devoured by the golden flame pillar. At that time, not even ashes would be left behind. Whoosh! The sound of wind breaking came from the hole that was burned. Lin Sheng and the others' expressions turned serious. They grasped the weapons in their hands tightly, and Yuan Li slowly condensed in their bodies. The person who could unleash such an attack was incomparably powerful compared to them. They even guessed that this person had entered the half-immortal realm. Just as they were about to enter battle mode, 3 figures flew up from the bottom of the ice cave. Landing at the entrance of the cave, the 3 of them were taken aback. They saw a large group of people wielding weapons. Furthermore, they appeared to be charging at them in a ferocious manner. Instantly, the immortal energy within their bodies began circulating furiously. The young woman standing at the front flapped her huge, pure white wings, and the sacred sword in her hand burned with incomparably holy golden flames. Sister Ming, wait a minute, the girl with long blue hair exclaimed, as if she had recognized something. The girl holding the golden sacred sword was stunned. However, the golden sacred sword in her hand had already drawn a crescent moon mark. The golden flame transformed into a sword ray that was hundreds of feet long and violently shot out. Seeing that the sword chi had already rushed out, the girl could only stare. In the end, she only had time to retract her destructive power. Then, she allowed the golden flame to engulf Lin Sheng and the others like a raging prairie fire. Such a powerful attack in the first exchange scared Lin Sheng so much that he bit his tongue. His hands formed a seal with lightning speed. A golden array appeared in front of him and gradually solidified. However, before the array could be completed, Shueling Feng and the others hurriedly joined forces to form an energy barrier that enveloped everyone behind them. The moment the barrier appeared, the raging golden flame whizzed over. Under the ferocious golden flame, the barrier that everyone hastily formed seemed too weak. Even though Ming had retracted most of her power, the barrier still shattered in less than a second. Behind the shattered barrier, Lin Sheng and the others gritted their teeth. In the end, they only had time to mobilize all their power to form a weak primary energy barrier in front of them. The golden flame whizzed past, rumbling as it rushed past Lin Sheng and the others. After rushing out for tens of meters, it finally extinguished slowly, leaving behind a large patch of black scorch marks on the ice. Lin Sheng and the others, who had faced the golden flame head-on, did not suffer any major injuries. They were all stunned on the spot. Their faces and bodies were black, as if they had just returned from digging coal. Burp! Shueling Feng spat out a mouthful of black smoke. His handsome face was completely black. His face was covered in the golden flame, and even his hair was almost singed. His body was still warm, and his arms were red. He subconsciously used his hands to block his face. It was almost 60% done now. Lin Sheng carelessly wiped his face. The more he wiped, the darker his handsome face became. At this moment, he did not care too much and hurriedly raised his head to look in front of him. The young lady who had almost wiped them out in one move was slowly walking over with a golden, sacred sword in her hand. A pair of gigantic wings carried a person in her embrace. Beside her were two other young ladies. One of them was dressed in men's clothes, while the other was someone he knew. He had seen her once or twice before. At that time, the young lady who had been following behind, Yin Nuoxing silently, was the one who had called out for Ming Ming to retract his attack a little, preventing the group from being wiped out in one move. After listening to Bing Er's explanation, Ming felt a little awkward. Although he wanted to put on a smile, his beautiful face remained indifferent. It was even a little indifferent. It seemed like he could not smile. After a moment, he thought of something. He lowered his head and looked at Yin Nuoxing in his arms. A smile immediately appeared on his holy face. He walked forward and said to Lin Sheng and the others, "Sorry, I thought you were an enemy." Lin Sheng and the others were a little confused when they did not see the familiar face. However, they recognized Bing Er. It was obvious that they had not found the wrong person. Just when everyone was about to think that Ming was Yin Nuoxing, they finally saw Yin Nuoxing, who was wrapped in a huge pair of wings. Her beautiful face was revealed with great difficulty. They finally noticed her familiar colored hair. "Mr. Yin, this is..." Mei Mao took the lead and walked forward. She glanced at Yin Nuoxing in Ming's arms. She was a little surprised. She could tell that Yin Nuoxing was in the emptiness realm. She was not in a good condition. Ming tried to organize his words. Bing Er knew that he did not like to speak. Instead, she stepped forward and quickly told Lin Sheng and the others about the series of events. "Emptiness realm? Isn't this a little too cruel?" When he heard that Yin Nuoxing was suppressed to the level of the emptiness realm, Lin Sheng's teeth chattered. Even if the rules here suppressed her, it did not make sense for her to be suppressed to this extent. No wonder Big Brother Yin asked for help. But I don't think there's a big difference whether we come or not. Yin pointed at Ming helplessly. Everyone looked at each other and nodded helplessly. The latter had already reached the immortal realm. They were almost wiped out when they met him just now. It did not seem to make much difference whether they came or not. This idiot didn't think too much at that time. We were surrounded on the ice field. There were only 4 of us. This idiot risked his life to give us a chance to escape. We thought we would be stuck here forever. Chu Yingzhan put her hands on her hips and said in a bad mood, "Also, we just came out of the ruins below. We found a very powerful heavenly treasure there. We let him try to break the seal. Who knew that he would end up like this after eating it? Who knows if he died or not?" As Chu Yingzhan spoke, she could not help but poke Yin Nuoxing's head with her slender finger. Lin Sheng and the others were dumbfounded. They had just received the news, and in the end, Yin Nuoxing had already come out of there. Also, don't think that he will fall asleep just like that. Believe it or not, he will jump up after a while. Chu Yingzhan twirled a strand of Yin Nuoxing's colorful hair around her finger. Ming and Bing Er were speechless. This girl was determined to wake Yin Nuoxing up. As expected, Yin Nuoxing widened her eyes and stared fiercely at Chu Yingzhan. She gritted her teeth and said, "Can't you just let me rest for a while? Hey, anyway, you slept all the way here. Now that the people you called are here, even if you're lying down, you have to jump up and say a few words. Everyone came all the way here to rescue you." Chu Yingzhan put her hands on her hips and said righteously. Yin Nuoxing took a deep breath. The veins on her forehead were popping. She glared at her for a while, but she swallowed her anger. She rolled out of Ming's arms and looked at Lin Sheng and the others. She smiled and waved her hand. "Hey, long time no see." Seeing that she was talking as if nothing had happened, Lin Sheng smiled helplessly and said, "Although I wanted to ask how your situation is, it seems that there is no need to say any more." Yes, the situation is terrible. Not really, I'm disabled, but these girls can still move. I'll just treat this as a special holiday for myself." Yin Nuoxing shrugged indifferently and said, But this is not the place to talk. Let's talk while we walk. Lin Sheng nodded. The entire ice field was full of people now. It was indeed not a place to talk. He waved his hand and led the others to retreat in the direction they came from. Originally, he wanted to go to the ruins under the ice to take a look. However, when he heard that Yin Nuoxing and the others had already been there, he could only give up on this idea. There was probably nothing left in there. Yin Nuoxing held Ming's shoulder and swung her long hair. She put one hand around his waist and flapped her pure white wings. She flew up with him and rushed towards Lin Sheng and the others. Bing Er and Chu Yingzhan also followed from the side. There was nothing special in the ruins. Other than some treasures related to the water element, there were some unimportant weapons. They were about level 1 or 2. Because they were too weak, we only took 1 or 2. We did not have time to take the rest. We snuck in. After we entered, the enchantment of the ruins disappeared and a large group of people rushed in. Yin Nuoxing slowly explained what had happened in the ruins. Then, she said with a strange expression, "This world is a little strange. A ruin of that scale should have been left behind by a strong god. However, corresponding to the things inside, the owner was probably only at the immortal level. Other than that, there was a map. This was a map of the entire arcane land. The entire arcane land was much bigger than I thought." Yin Nuoxing said something that made everyone's expression turn serious. A map was a rare resource in this place. Lin Sheng and the others had seen people who had obtained information about the map. It was said that there were many flaws in the map. Even so, countless people had fought for it on the spot. Knowing what this group of people was thinking, Yin Nuoxing smiled faintly. She sent out a weak soul wave and threw the information about the map to Lin Sheng. After Lin Sheng received the information, his eyes flickered slightly. This was a huge circular world. The division of the regions was like a horizontal rhombus. In the middle, there were 6 square lands that had been expanded. On the left of these 6 lands were 5 regions related to the 5 elements. On the right, there was another land related to the 4 special elements. Not a single one of the 16 regions was missing. This map was so detailed that it even included every mountain range in every region. At the 4 corners of the circular area that were separated by the rhombus, there were 4 dark areas. Nothing could be seen in those areas. It was like a strange purple-black void. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.